This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto discovered power of the Forgotten Kingdom. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
The usual disclaimer is in effect. I do not own Sparta, Pancration, Naruto, or any historical figures. The only thing I own here are my ideas. Dreams, thoughts, or flashbacks are indicated in italics. Kyuubi or another supernatural force speaking boldly. Chapter 1. The hero is awakened on a trail. Naruto found himself facing an army that appeared to be a wall of gleaming polished brass, razor-sharp spears, and helmets with scarlet-red hair. This was an army of no more than a few hundred, and he looked upon it. Each shield protected the man to his left from neck to thigh as they stood in a phalanx formation, and their helmets and greaves protected their heads and shins from swords, spears, and arrows. Despite its small size, Naruto was certain that this army was equally as powerful as the one that he thought was so incredible, possibly 100 times larger. A man sitting on a horse, obviously not a member of the fighting force, spoke loudly from the side Naruto was now facing. He was fully decked out in robes and jewelry. "Spartans, drop your weapons, bow to the King Xerxes and you will not die where you stand." In the center of the phalanx's front line, one man who was part of the Spartan army yelled in a booming voice. "Persians, come and get them!" he exclaimed as his whole army charged forward, ready to kill and gain the ultimate glory of losing a war for their holy land. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, Naruto woke up. The shinobi were overcome with awe at the sight of that small but powerful army. The village appears to be pathetically inferior to theirs at that point. Naruto made the decision to learn more about these Spartans and incorporate them into his arsenal of fighting techniques. After a quick breakfast and getting dressed in his typical orange jumpsuit, Naruto ventured out into the bright daylight. The library would undoubtedly have something on the ancient warriors, so he started toward it. He saw a number of people glaring at him as he made his way to the library. He approached the front desk as soon as he entered and asked the librarian where he could locate Spartan-related books. She directed him to the library's Ancient Civilizations section. He mostly discovered information about samurai, Chinese warriors, and ancient Japanese warriors, from whom modern ninja descended. He was on the verge of giving up when he noticed a ragged leather spine. When he saw the words, "Spartan History and Culture," the blonde grabbed the book off the shelf, carried it to a table, and opened it. Since Naruto returned from training with Jiraiya, Sakura had grown accustomed to being taken by surprise. She had witnessed him perform both amazing and terrifying feats, as well as say things that she found incredibly endearing. When she realized that she was referring to Naruto and not some old heartthrob hero or her old crush, who was still an A-class missing ninja, she turned away from the latter of those. Naruto was hunched over a big leather book when she entered the library. Curious, the pink-haired shinobi walked up and peered over his shoulder when she heard him mutter. Without taking his eyes off the book, Naruto remarked, "Sakura, you shouldn't try to sneak up on me, it's impolite. I was just wondering what you're reading because I've hardly ever seen you read anything but technique scrolls." Sakura had gotten to know Naruto well, and she hadn't seen him as much since Ino started dating Shikamaru. It tells the story of the most incredible people in history, the Spartans, who lived in 480 AD with just their spears, shields, and swords, and no jutsu at all. Their king, Leonidas, and 300 soldiers defeated an army of at least 200,000. "I'm going to study their training regimens and acquire a sword known as the Hittite." Was partially hidden by his hair, which he had started growing out after hearing a couple talk about how much he would resemble Yondaime if he did so. He also read in the book that the Spartans took pride in their long hair, xiphos, and their armor and shield. Naruto smiled. "Good luck with that, I've got some research to do," said Sakura. After checking out the book, Naruto got up from his chair and left through the door. As he stepped in, the old man glanced up at Naruto and then at the leather book he was holding. The blonde started toward the weaponsmith he had recently become friends with, who specialized in using special jutsu to create weapons and armor that were incredibly light and durable. "Son, what can I do to help you today?" asked the elderly man. When Naruto placed the book on the counter, the elderly man glanced at it, grinned, and then turned to face him. "I need some things made for me, weapons and some armor, but not just ordinary. I need you to make me some just like the warriors that are in this book, but that are also ninja-friendly, that I can hide in seals on my body," Naruto said. "You want Spartan-style weapons? The greaves, helmet, musculata, gauntlets, and hoplon. Do you want them? The xiphos and the dori? Everything?" He smiled, and Naruto nodded. "I can create a set of armor that will instantly conform to your body the moment you put it on, and will grow as you do," he said. "Give me every piece, and until then, do you have any swords I can practice with?" When Naruto asked, The elderly man disappeared behind a curtain and reappeared holding a scroll. All in here, and boy, I'll give you the whole set for 5,000 Ryu. 3 weeks and I'll have it ready for ya, along with some care tips, the elderly man said with a smile as Naruto placed 5 bills on the counter and picked up the scroll. The spear was still sealed, but he unwrapped it. It was long, about 6 feet from tip to butt. Its point and blade only took up about 6 inches of this length. It was razor sharp. It ended in a nasty point. And the sword, which was about 2.5 feet long by 1.5 inches wide and convex from the straps that held it in place, was sharp. Naruto sat in his room, examining the sword and the shield. The sun was high in the sky when he went to a training ground at around 3 p.m. He strapped the sword to his waist, placed the shield on his arm, and held his spear in his other hand. He started practicing thrusts and slashes with the spear, but he stopped and dropped both. He then made a number of bunshin and started fighting them all with the shield and spear as weapons. He then made 30 clones and instructed them to form the 2-line phalanx formation, and they fought in this manner. Naruto stopped as the sun went down, remembering that he still had some things to do. Naruto rarely left the ramen section of the grocery store. However, the Spartans ate chicken, pork, and vegetables instead of ramen. He picked up a week's worth of food, and when the clerk asked him about it, he explained to her that he was altering his diet to include more calcium, protein, and vitamins. After standing in front of his stove, which he had never used for anything other than heating water, Naruto got the bright idea to call Sakura. "Yes, Naruto? What are you in need of?" Naruto only ever called when he needed something, she inquired. "Could you please come over and teach me how to cook, Sakura?" With obvious embarrassment in his voice, Naruto inquired. "Are you serious? Have you never prepared any food? That's pitiful, but since you only eat ramen, I suppose I shouldn't be shocked. I'll be over to assist you shortly," Sakura said. "Thanks, you're a great friend. See you in a few." "Yeah, okay," she said, hanging up. 15 minutes later, Sakura arrived to assist Naruto in cooking the meat and preparing the vegetables, which included tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, and celery, along with a freshly baked bread loaf. "Would you like to stay and share the food with me, Sakura, since you assisted in its preparation?" They sat down at the table and started eating. "Naruto, I'd love to, but," she trailed off, trying to think of an excuse, but when she couldn't, she gave up. "Sure, I'll stay, this looks good." Naruto tasted it and thought it tasted fantastic. "Whoa, this is fantastic. We did a good job, Sakura," he shouted, and Sakura was taken aback by how good the simple meal tasted. They ate in silence, saving enough for Naruto's breakfast the following day. 3 weeks have gone by. After waking up, Naruto started his new morning routine, which included 500 push-ups on each hand, 500 sit-ups, and a jog of about 10 kilometers. He then proceeded to his usual training ground, where he took out his sword, unlocked his shield and spear, created multiple shadow clones, and started fighting himself. Around this time, Tenten happened to pass through that specific training area and saw multiple lines of Naruto slashing and spearing at each other with double-edged swords. Confused, she started to approach, but as she did, she saw a crowd of Narutos charging with swords drawn. When she jumped, they all jumped directly at her, kicking and kicking, and she destroyed a significant number of the clones. Landing, his phalanx reformed, Naruto halted his attack. "How are things going, Tenten?" With a smile, Naruto spelled out his clones. "Are you insane, Naruto? You nearly kill me and then you ask me how I am?" Tenten barked. Naruto stood tall and solemn, saying, "Yeah, this is my training ground. It's unofficial. I found it when I was younger. No one walks through here ever. So you should get going soon. I like my privacy, unless you want to spar." Naruto followed and splintered the trunk of a tree with his spear. He knelt behind his shield, moving slowly in a crouch, and felt someone behind him. He swung his shield, striking Tenten, knocking her back, and lunging with his spear, which he lodged in another tree. "Okay, I want to see what you can do." Tenten assumed a standard hand-to-hand stance. Naruto then positioned himself behind his shield, pointing his spear toward Tenten. She jumped back, firing kunai in his direction. Naruto dropped the spear and pulled out his sword as Tenten stood behind him. Using a shunshin, he charged, positioned behind her, and used his left arm to hold her against him as he struck her ribs with the pommel of his sword. Naruto dropped his sword and took a step back, saying, "Since I have you down with weapons, let's go for hand-to-hand." When she assumed a Kempo stance, Naruto removed his shield and put it down because, to the Spartans, doing so was a sign of cowardice. As she lunged, he slid his left foot forward and kept his hands open. He then thrust his foot out, landing his heel on her arms, which she had raised to block his enormous strength. This was a bad idea because both of her arms were immediately numbed. With her arms limp, Tenten yelled, your strength is insane. You could rival Sakura's, what have you been doing? Naruto then lowered himself, flung his shoulder into her stomach, grabbed her thighs, and lifted her before slamming her to the ground with a double-leg takedown. I discovered the Greek art of pancration, and a crazy routine to train without the gyms that people normally use, Naruto said. Using the kick she tried to throw, he grabbed her shoulder and flipped her onto her stomach. He then put a rear arm bar on her, wrapping his arm around her neck and whispering in her ear, "I win this one." Naruto got up and helped her up before retrieving his spear and sealing it. She took the sword from the ground and charged, but Naruto caught her arm, disarmed her, slammed her into the ground on her face, slid his arm under her elbow, and applied what she called the lever lock, a device that was similar to an armbar except that the target's arm was bent over your elbow, allowing you to push on their wrist and bicep and break their arm all the way down. Tenten had just been completely destroyed by Naruto, who had dealt her a serious blow to her pride. He was sitting on her back when he said, "I suggest you don't do that, I'll break this arm off, and you won't see it again." He then got up, grabbed his shield and sword, and walked away. Tenten broke down in tears. She had never felt so completely helpless. When Naruto reached the weaponsmith, the elderly man raised his head. The elderly man turned the counter upside down and said, "I just finished your stuff, come into the back, I'll show you." Naruto took over. They entered a spacious room that resembled a warehouse after passing through two curtains. Naruto noticed a muscular mannequin wearing a set of armor. He handed him the armor, and Naruto took off his shirt before putting it on and tightening the straps. "Here it is. Let's get this armor fitted to ya so you can get out of here. Here's the musculata. Take your shirt off and put this on, it'll fit right to your body." The armor started to conform to his now toned body, which was still well toned despite being far from the Greek legend. The helmet then took shape around the top of his head. As he put it on over his head, he put the gauntlets and greaves off for later. After sealing the shield and spear into a scroll, he sealed the remainder of his armor in a separate scroll. As Naruto turned to leave, he noticed Tenten. "Hey, what are you doing here?" he asked inquisitively. "Thanks, old man, I can hardly feel this armor. I'm going to pick up some shorts to wear from now on, and maybe a cloak like the Spartans had. I'm going to take my leave now, thank you." She looked at his brass-colored armor and remarked, "I live here, this is my father's shop. I see he made you some armor, and some weapons I assume? I shouldn't have acted that way back at the training ground. Could I come and watch you train some more?" Naruto took off his helmet and put his shirt and scrolls inside. "I don't mind, just don't get in my way, and don't come before noon. I don't want anyone knowing my workout secrets," he said. "And I'll even teach you some pancration. Bring some food, preferably pork or bread, even apples would do. See you tomorrow," Naruto said. The old smith remarked, "Yep, I know that look, Alexandra, you like him. Don't use my real name here, in case you forgot, Andrew. We're known here as Tenten and Musashi," Tenten responded. "He's almost 18, you think Tsunade will tell him he's descended from not just the fourth, but also from the very Spartan king he wants so much to be like, Leonidas." At 6 a.m., Naruto woke up as usual. A whole month had passed since he had gotten his armor, and he had used his Bunshin skills to train for the equivalent of several years. After eating his breakfast, he put on his shorts, sleeveless shirt, armor, and sword. His new Xiphos was much better than his old one. It was shaped the same way, but it weighed only 1 pound instead of the 2.5 pounds that made up the old one. His spear weighed 3.5 pounds, and his shield had been lowered from 4.5 pounds to just 2. His helmet was sealed on the inside of his Hide-8, and he kept his spear and shield sealed in his right and left wrists, respectively. He always wore his greaves and gauntlets, and instead of sandals, he had black leather combat boots. He only needed to focus chakra and spread it over his body to be fully armored. He still carried shuriken and had made a seal on the inside of his shield with more than 100 spears that he could call forth one at a time to throw. He had the elderly Musashi apply the seals to his weapons. Kakashi assisted him in applying the seals to his helmet and weapons. At around 10 in the morning, Naruto completed his morning ritual in his hidden forest. He had 3 more weeks off before the Junin exams, but he had a mission today when he heard something. He turned, fully decked out in his Spartan armor, shield, and spear, and started to head for the Hokage's office. He heard a rustle again, and then a figure in a black hakama, knee-high tabi, black coat, and white gi stood up. He recognized this figure at once. Naruto snarled, "Sasuke, what do you want?" Sasuke drew the kusanagi slowly while grinning the entire time. "I want to kill you." Sasuke then disappeared before Sasuke could use his Chidori Nagashi. The Uzumaki raised his shield to block the sword and then drew it back. He threw his spear at Sasuke, who thrust in and batted it away. Naruto took a step back, pushed the sword away, and then spun around, using the shaft of his spear to force wind out of Sasuke's lungs. Sasuke caught the spear point and trapped it against his ribs after he thrust the butt into them and then turned and thrust it again without delay. Naruto pulled out his sword and sealed it again. He struck out with the featherweight sword, and Sasuke kicked with his right leg, clanging against Naruto's grief as he struggled to raise his own in time. Naruto knocked Sasuke onto his back after slamming the edge of his shield into his face, causing him to drop his sword. Sasuke caught the edge of Naruto's shield between his palms as he lashed out with it once more. Naruto then thrust with his Xiphos, and Sasuke rolled to the right. Sasuke stood. Naruto sealed his shield and helmet, and his sword sank into the ground. Naruto lunged forward, caught the roundhouse Sasuke threw, and punched Sasuke in the face with his iron-hard fist, saying, "We're doing this barehanded, and even if you kill me in the process, I will kill you this time." He locked his thighs over Sasuke's knee, applied an ankle lock around Sasuke's Achilles tendon, and kicked out Sasuke's leg, slamming his head into the ground. The Uchiha screamed in pain as he destroyed Sasuke's knee, ankle, and Achilles tendon with this single lock while pushing with his hips and pulling with his arms and thighs. Naruto Uzumaki stood up and unlocked his spear, holding it high with the point facing downward. Sasuke yelled, "Wait, let me say something before you murder me. Why ought I to permit you to do that? Is the great last Uchiha afraid when you look into death's face? You're a wanted criminal who almost killed me 3 times. I can see it in your eyes, as you can see from the Dobi's position." Uzumaki's eyes hardened, and he said, "I'll put my spear through your chest and cut out your eyes if you don't get my attention by then." The words, "I know who your father was," made Uchiha perspire profusely. "He was the Yondaime, but that's not all. Your mother is still alive." "You tell lies. That can't possibly be true." He twisted and jammed his spear into Sasuke's shoulder, causing the Uchiha to scream. "I got to meet her. Just east of here is a plains town where she resides. You have a brother, too. Ichigo is his name." Naruto withdrew his spear from Sasuke and scowled. "I'll give you life if you tell me the town, her name, address, and description, quick." Naruto took the spear from Sasuke, sealed it, took his sword from the ground, sheathed it, and took out a small notebook from his right pocket. "If you don't, I'll send you to Morino Ibiki to torture the information out of you. Her name is Yukiya, and she lives in a town called Diamond Lake. She is approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, with blonde hair that falls just below her shoulder blade, green eyes, and a distinctive figure. If you enter the town square from the western gate, you will face the fountain, turn right, and a large blue and white Konoha banner is on the porch. She sits on her porch and has a cup of tea every day at 1:30 p.m. Sasuke fainted after completing his writing. Naruto picked up Sasuke, snatched up his sword, and proceeded in the direction of the Hokage building. Tsunade was about to witness something she had never anticipated. Tsunade stammered, "Naruto. That's not who I think it is it?" "Yep. One Uchiha Sasuke, served very rare. I'm sorry Tsunade. I've got a trip. I'm going to find my mother. I'll be back in 2 weeks." Naruto said. "Oh yeah, I expect my 1,500,000 Ryu when I get back. Keep him alive until then too. I need some more information out of him." Naruto walked away. "What happened to you, Naruto?" Tsunade asked, glancing at the Kusanagi on the floor next to him and the unconscious body of the criminal Naruto had left on her floor. When Naruto got home, he took out his cloak, which was black instead of red like the original Spartans, but he kept it for the same reason. He started for the eastern gate, but as soon as he could see it, 5 Anbu soldiers surrounded him. One with an eagle mask said, "Uzumaki Naruto, we have orders to not let you leave this village. You're going to get out of the way or you're going to be taking a trip to the hospital. I've got some very important business to take care of." Naruto opened all of his belongings. "We insist that we not have to use force, Naruto," said Eagle. A man wearing a boar mask said, "No, let's see what this idiot can do." He stepped forward and said, "Just you and me." He pulled out his sword and lunged, but Naruto deflected it into the hard-packed dirt street and slammed the shield into his attacker's face, dropping this opponent. He whipped his spear shaft into the man. "Please let me pass. I'm going east to go find my mother. I got some information on the only surviving members of my family. I want to see them." Naruto opened his weapons, glancing at the man wearing the eagle mask, who stepped aside. "Thank you. I'll remember your kindness," Uzumaki said as Naruto passed the man wearing the boar mask got to his feet. "He's just as good as we thought. It seems the growth has begun." The man wearing a dragon mask said, "Yes, we'll notify the leader right away." Eagle remained quiet as he thought about what Naruto had said. Naruto's journey only took a few hours, and his strength training every morning helped him reach his typical pace when traveling alone. When he reached the Diamond Lake Gate, two guards brandishing spears stopped him as they saw Naruto. "State your business and village affiliation or we'll kill you," one guard said. "If you could kill me, I'd be a disgrace to the Konoha village. My business is very personal. I feel no need to tell you, but if you must know, I'm searching for someone. I have reason to believe they're here." Naruto raised his eyebrows. Naruto placed his left hand on the pommel of his sword and said, "You will allow me entry into your gates." He caught the attention of one guard, then the other. "I'll make you a bet. If you can beat both me and my partner, we'll remember your face, and anytime you come by, we'll let you in." Naruto said, "Why not let me in anyway?" But the guard had already intervened and was advancing on him with his spear. Naruto avoided it, pulled out his sword, and struck the man's spear with it, putting his knee in his groin. In a kick known as the gastresian, Naruto brought his heel into the man's stomach after the next man swung his sword into his chest. The clang of the spear striking Naruto's armor made the spearman's weapon tremble violently. Naruto resheathed his sword, walked in, and saw both men crumpled. The two men stood and exchanged glances. "His growth is exponential. The Uchiha was right about his ability to grow in leaps and bounds," stated another. "Yet in all, he never once drew his spear, used his shield, and he didn't even use his sword to do anything but break my spear. If he gets the special training from Uchiha, he'll be invincible." Both of the guards took up positions. Tsunade and Sakura worked to close the deep spear wound on Sasuke's chest. Back in Konoha, when they turned his unconscious form over, they saw that his curse seal was gone and that his back was inscribed with a number of symbols. Sakura questioned, "Shisho, what do those symbols mean?" "They're a word in the language from a long time ago called Greek. If I remember correctly, I believe it says, 'Hail to the final king of Lacedaemon,'" Tsunade said, glancing at them. "What could it possibly mean?" Tsunade asked. She asked. Naruto saw two banners as he got closer to the house with the Konoha symbol and the Greek letter, lambda, in scarlet. Naruto heard a voice behind him as he approached the door, prepared to knock. "What do you want and who are you?" The voice belonged to a man. "What do you want and who are you?" the voice said. Naruto turned and saw a young boy with a sword similar to his own, wearing similar armor, but without a spear or shield. His hair spilled between his shoulder blades and below the edge of his helmet. "I'm looking for someone. Perhaps you know her. She goes by the name of Uchiha," Naruto said. "With my mother. What do you want?" the boy uttered. "She's my mother, Ichigo. I'm your older brother," said Naruto. "You tell lies. Naruto and his father died 17 years ago, according to mother." The Uzumaki dodged a swing for the boy's head as Ichigo charged, swinging his sword, and he grabbed the boy's wrist, twisting his arm behind his back. Naruto heard bags drop and turned to see the woman Sasuke had described. "Mother," was all he could say, so he took a few steps to cover the distance and gave her a hug. "No. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm 17 years old, soon to be 18 years old. I've been living in Konohagakure no Sato since. I want to see our mother." Naruto sat inside and spoke until the question was finally raised. "Why did you abandon me, Mom, if you were aware of my birth?" She gave him a quick glance before speaking. "I honestly thought you were dead because of the Kyuubi," Uchiha replied. "Had I not thought so, I would have stayed in the village." "Why does the house have the Spartan crest on the front?" he inquired. "Because I am descended from King Leonidas, who was a Spartan. You see, there's a society of people who are of Spartan lineage, and it was always planned that Spartans would marry other Spartans, to preserve our bloodline. Your father was from a different line, but from the same country." Uchiha looked at Ichigo, then Naruto. "The three of us and Uchiha Sasuke are the only remaining full-bloods," she said. "Our people's emblem is a tattoo on the back that reads, 'Hail to the final king of Lacedaemon.' In Greek, Ichigo was supposed to be here, but since you're closest to the growth, it will be you." Uchiha fixed her gaze on her son. "The development?" did Naruto ask. "Naturally, you would be unaware that a Spartan's physical prowess and chakra capacity increase dramatically after the age of 18. They frequently go through a unique training program that also unlocks a dojutsu. These things have evolved since the beginning of the ninja era, but neither the women nor the ancient Spartans had them." Naruto was, to put it mildly, confused. "I start this growth 4 days before my birthday, so when does it end?" 6 months, but only if you submit to the training regimen. If not, it kills you," she responded. "Give me the regimen. I'm going to become a Spartan warrior," Naruto said. Ichigo stood up and said, "First, I want to see what you can really do. I want to fight you with swords." Naruto gave him a look that seemed to search his eyes before responding. With a smile, Naruto said, Let's go full scale, all out, spear and hoplin as well as swords. They entered the backyard, a full-scale training area that covered almost an acre of land. Naruto unlocked his shield and spear before putting on his helmet. Ninjutsu has its definite advantages, he said, forming 31 bunshin in total. He had one full phalanx formation, with 4 lines of 8 soldiers. Ichigo marveled at the skill, as he had no such ability, having been raised in Sparta. Tsunade thought as she stood there that her surgery on Sasuke had gone well. How could the Uchiha be Spartans? Their dujutsu, not the ancient Spartan powers, was supposed to be the source of their power. The knock of Jiraiya interrupted her thoughts. So, Naruto discovered the organization according to my network. He discovered Uchiha today. Do you believe he is aware of the growth yet? Jiraiya inquired as Minato's sensei. He was aware of the Spartan ancestry from an early age. There were now only 3 remaining in Konoha. 2 full bloods, including the Uchiha traitor, and 1 full blood, with hardly any of the special blood remaining. Do you believe he will embrace the training and the brand? Tsunade asked. If he does, he'll miss the Junin exams again. Jiraiya grinned before responding. Knowing Naruto, of course, in the 3 years I had him, he always took every opportunity to train. Now training in a way he will soon call himself the sole user of, other than his brother, of course he will. Jiraiya's grin disappeared. If he gets Uchiha back here, the organization will want Naruto in the position of Hokage, you know that, and they'll likely take up positions in the council. Tsunade replied. Of course, in about 5 years I plan on relinquishing the position to him given he doesn't die first. Sakura entered the room. She said, Sasuke has regained consciousness, and then she departed once more. Naruto decided it was unfair to completely destroy his younger brother with a phalanx, so he played one-on-one. He pushed his spear forward, but it was blocked, so he pulled back, avoiding the spear that was thrown at him. He then slammed the shield into the spear shaft and slammed a back kick into the shield, which caused a loud crack. Naruto took advantage of this and slammed the butt of his spear into the center of the hoplin, splintering it. Should we switch to swords now that I broke your shield? Or are you happy with your current options? He drew his sword as well. Ichigo responded by thrusting his sword at the shield in the direction of his target, causing the blade to slide harmlessly away. Ichigo then struck with a gastrizian, his foot not even denting his shield. Naruto's response came when a sword came at him with blinding speed. He stepped back, barely avoiding it, then thrust forward with his spear. Ichigo caught it, pulling hard on it, jerking it from the blonde's hands. What is the material of your shield? He asked. Solid metal, some unknown one used by the weaponsmith in my village, Naruto said, sliding it off his arm and saying, I'll even the odds. The two clanged together, released their grips instantly, and locked hands. Naruto turned and threw Ichigo over his shoulder before slamming an axe kick home. Ichigo blocked it with his gauntlets, grabbed his ankle, and swung a leg under his, tripping him when he hit the ground. He felt the Achilles leg lock being applied, and used all of his strength to pull his leg away from the dangerous lock. Sasuke gazed at 3 individuals, the final 2 of whom he recognized as Sannin. What are you looking for? Sasuke inquired. Why send Uchiha to Naruto? You are aware that he is the final Spartan king and that your group will eventually overthrow him? So why point him in the direction of something that will give him infinite power? Jiraiya inquired. At least Naruto's line was strong enough to make even your brute strength seem weak. Now, only he and Ichigo will be. I was aware that I needed to find a reason for killing Itachi. Sasuke said. After learning about my heritage, I decided to bring Naruto to Uchiha, making this nation the most powerful ever. Tsunade gave him a curious look before continuing. Sasuke started to laugh and smirked as he turned to face the Hokage. We're already the strongest, we don't need the Spartans here too. This hasn't been the strongest nation for a long time. Your method of teaching isn't brutal enough. Each class is going to get weaker until Konoha collapses. Sasuke glanced at his hands before clenching. That's why I didn't train here. You're too weak. Kirigakure is far more effective. When Naruto is Hokage, things will change. He'll conquer the whole Gokuni and then there will be a land that is unstoppable. Tsunade glanced at the Uchiha. What gives you such confidence that he will take over the world? She inquired. Gokuni, not the world, I said, adding that there are millions more people and hundreds of times more land than our tiny area. He will, in my opinion, since his need for power will grow after he completes the growth and eventually obtains his position. Sasuke laid down. Now let me sleep, I'm tired. As they stood, Uchiha had returned to declare that she had finished preparing dinner, and Ichigo was much more exhausted and bruised than Naruto, who only had a few minor but unpleasant bruises. This is fantastic. The 2 other people at the table stared at Naruto as he yelled and then took a number of big bites, finishing his steak in a few bites. Have you never eaten steak before? Ichigo inquired. Naruto took a big gulp of milk from his glass and answered, "No, I usually eat pork or chicken at home. Before I discovered Spartans, I only ever ate ramen." Uchiha grinned and said, "Naruto, your manners are terrible. Never really learned any manners, I always just did things in a way that worked for me." "Well, for one, you're supposed to chew with your mouth closed, also you don't talk with your mouth full." "Where is Ichigo's dad now?" Naruto asked. "He can't possibly have the same father as me, and he has brown hair, whereas you and I have blonde hair, and his eyes are different." Uchiha looked down, and Ichigo's eyes immediately became sad. "Are you familiar with the group Akatsuki?" Uchiha inquired. "Yeah, my best friend helped kill one of the members. I'm responsible for the death of a member," said Naruto. "Another full-blood Spartan, Uchiha Itachi, killed him and tried to murder Ichigo because he thought he would become king. We got to know Uchiha Sasuke, the youngest of the surviving full-bloods. After he killed Itachi after suffering severe injuries, he was successful in killing Ichigo's father, Paul." Rewind. 3 months ago, you traveled from Konoha. Sasuke, could you please tell me if Uzumaki Naruto is still alive?" Uchiha inquired, and Sasuke's eyes grew icy. "Yes, he's the only person I haven't been able to kill. I've killed Orochimaru, Itachi. I've even destroyed the cursed seal, but Naruto seems immortal," replied Sasuke. "That makes sense. Are you familiar with Achilles, the warrior who was submerged in the Styx River? He is the real true king, so I want you to go to Konoha and fight him. If he wins, then tell him to come here. If not, then kill him, decapitate him, and let his blood drain out. That is the only way to kill him," Uchiha said. "When Naruto was a day old, I had told the man who would succeed my husband as Hokage to do so, and make sure to wet his heel. Naruto has skin that is harder than steel, so he can bleed, but he won't die from the wounds. After saying, 'I'll do that when my wounds heal,' Sasuke went to bed." Flashback end. Now that he knew why cuts could not harm him and why the Chidori and multiple deadly stab wounds he had received had never killed him, Naruto sat in confusion. "Where can I start my training to make it through the growth?" Uchiha went to her bookshelf and took a book out when Naruto asked. She said, "Here's the regimen. You'll have to travel east and you'll come to the summit of a mountain. Do it up there." Naruto glanced at her and opened the small book, which mostly contained notes on how to perform certain exercises on the mountain, survival advice, and other such things. The regimen was rather straightforward and included push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, gravity sit-ups, handstand push-ups, a summit to base jog and back, and a few other exercises. The usual disclaimer is in effect. I do not own Sparta, Pancration, Naruto, or any historical figures. The only thing I own here are my ideas. Dreams, thoughts, or flashbacks are indicated in italics. Kyuubi or another supernatural force speaking boldly. Chapter 4. The development. After a month in the hospital, Sasuke had regained full function of his body, and Tsunade had placed him in a high-power ninja holding cell until Naruto returned to make a decision. After realizing that the only reason he had ever left was to kill Itachi, Tsunade had decided that he had a chance to atone for the things he had done, and after saving Naruto's mother, she had decided that he had a chance to atone for his actions. He was now performing push-ups while standing on his hands, and the guard watching him was horrified by his remarkable balance. He had been doing so for almost 3 hours. His sword was leaning against the wall, just out of reach of any inmate. Sasuke came down onto his feet and turned to face the guard. Sasuke placed his hand on the left side of his neck and said, "Lucky for you that I'm not him anymore." He then put on his shirt and lay on the bed and said, "You better survive, Naruto. I didn't fight the power of the cursed seal just so you could die fighting the growth." He then fell asleep. "If I were my old self, I could call the sword and be out of here faster than you can even blink." Sakura and Lee, one of her many sparring partners, were engaged in combat. Sakura had been training non-stop since reading the note she received from Naruto a month ago, wearing 50 kilograms on each arm and 100 on each leg. She wanted to increase her speed and power because Naruto was always quick, and with this new discovery of pancration, the strength training he'd been doing, and the exponential power he'd gain with the growth he'd be enduring, he'd be several times stronger than her and Sasuke, who had already gone through his. Sakura wondered why Sasuke had held back after hearing about their battle because, from what she had heard, a fully grown Spartan would obliterate one who wasn't, probably because he wanted to give Naruto a chance with the family he never had. Tsunade searched her mind. Naruto had been in this purported growth for a month and nobody had heard a word of him. He might have died and no one would have known. While this was going on, Naruto was dragging a dead deer back to his campsite, where he sat down and started skinning it with a knife he had picked up before coming up here. He then pressed his fist into the animal's hide, making sure to keep the muscle and skin separate. The Kyuubi said, "Why not just eat it raw, boy?" Since Kyuubi was, in fact, the only thing keeping him from going crazy, Naruto replied, "Because I'm no animal. Plus I'm going to use this to sleep on, after I tan it. I've only got leaves as a mattress. Fur would be more desirable. Having someone to talk to was helpful in the wild. Especially someone who was finally not trying to dominate his spirit. I sometimes forget you're human. Usually humans don't converse with demons." Kyuubi laughed. "You're a different one though. You understand what it's like to be alone. That's where we share something. I never once had anyone. They always feared me. Killing was my only skill, be it in human form or demon. I could kill like no other, but I think once you finish this growth, you will perhaps rival me. Look at what you did to that Uchiha without chakra or jutsu." He was holding back. Naruto kept cutting tiny holes in the skin and using his fist to pull the skin apart. He's already undergone the growth. No Spartan who hasn't could beat one who has. The blonde brushed some hair away from his eyes, taking off his headband so his hair hung past his eyes, and he wore nothing to avoid getting blood on it. The first month had made his clothes uncomfortable, so he was considering making a pair of deerskin pants, but he would have to spend more time on a leaf mattress if he did. "I'll make new pants later. Comfort for my bed is more important." Kyuubi laughed and said, "You're a smart one. Being clothed is nothing if you die in the cold at night." Naruto then started laying the fur over his mattress, started chopping the meat off the carcass, dug a hole, lined it with large tree leaves to keep the water and organ juices that would preserve the skin inside, laid the skin in the hole, covered it with more leaves, started his fire, and then buried the sticks he had placed the meat on in the ground around it. He worked out while he waited, then bathed in the chilly lake, dried off with the one towel his mother had given him, and went to bed. 5 months have gone by. Ichigo was practicing his form in his backyard, slashing at the posts with his sword, when he paused to gaze eastward at the mountain. "When will you return, Naruto?" Ichigo asked the air, unaware that Naruto would be coming down the mountain on April 10th, the day his question would be answered. He was sitting shirtless, wearing only his musculata and deerskin shorts, watching the sunrise, eating a fish he had caught, and his hair, which had grown about a centimeter a week during the growth, was now past his shoulders. He finished the fish and got up. While up on the mountain, Naruto had learned to release a small 9-tailed fox, but the seal prevented him from giving him any of the power. "Well, Kyuubi, it's finally time to go back down. I can feel that it's over. I'm going to go back into the world of people," Naruto said to his companion. Before disappearing once more into the seal, Kyuubi muttered, "I'll miss being able to run rampant and eat all the rabbit and deer I want. When we're in my house, I'll let you run around, no biting the guests and don't defecate on the floor or furniture," said Naruto. "Deal, but you have to feed me." "All right," Naruto said, getting up, grabbing his cloak and sword, putting on his boots and greaves, and putting the gauntlets on his arms, which had grown much more muscular. Sasuke stood in the cell and gazed out at the east-facing barred square. Before beginning his exercises, Sasuke said, "You're coming back, be here soon." Sakura was in the Hokage's office with Tsunade. "Do you believe he's headed back, Shisho?" the Haruno inquired. "He hasn't seen his family in 6 months, so he'll want to see them. Give him a week or two, he'll be back," Tsunade said. "After that, they will all return." Yeah, I think so. I'm eager to see how well he's done," Kakashi replied. Tsunade threw an empty sake bottle at him, saying, "Why do you always use the window? I have a door, you know." Kakashi ducked under it and then raised his hands. He grinned under his mask and said, "I just want to see my old student now that he's grown up." 3 days have gone by in the forest around the Hokage mountain, within the city limits of Konoha. A small group of people, 5 wearing red cloaks and 1 in black, moved like phantoms, making no noise and causing no disturbance to the surrounding foliage. The one in the black cloak continued to run and leap from the mountain as they approached the cliff's edge. When the roof collapsed, Tsunade was initially shocked, but her shock quickly gave way to rage. Kakashi maintained his composure before grinning and muttering to himself. Kakashi took out his little orange book and opened it, saying, "I guess we'll give him the ultimate test." As the dust settled, Naruto appeared in his armor and black cloak, with long hair reaching his shoulders and muscle that could not have been gained in 6 months. Tsunade looked at him and swung a fist at him with all her strength, and Naruto caught it with ease. Now we mustn't get angry. I just got back. The least you could do was say happy birthday, then punch me," Naruto said, looking at his hand clamped over hers. "Though that really doesn't seem very effective, we'll need a new brand of punishment," Naruto said. "Yo?" The blonde smiled. "Naruto," Sakura said, examining the god of a man who was standing in front of her. He turned, grinned, and looked down. "Hey Sakura, how are you? I got taller again, awesome," he said after comparing their heights. "What should we do, Naruto, now that the new Sannin are here?" Kakashi inquired. Naruto then disappeared into thin air after saying, "Tsunade, go get Sasuke, tell him to meet me at the training ground in 20 minutes. An elderly monk was sitting in his garden in a distant land, meditating. He felt his bones tremble, got up, and turned to face south, muttering to himself. He sat down again and resumed his meditation after saying, "A battle between great powers is going to take place soon." When something exploded, Sasuke was not one to remain motionless. He had used a Kawarimi no Jutsu to escape from the jail, and when he heard the explosion, he was startled and quickly knocked the guard unconscious, grabbed his sword, and fled in the aftermath. Where is Sakura? When Sasuke arrived at the Hokage's office, he was tucking his sword into his belt and wearing a black shinobi shozoku, without a mask, and a tabi that reached his mid-calf instead of the attire he had worn as Habi. "How did you get out of there?" "He told me to meet him at the training ground in 20 minutes, she inquired. To stop Kawarimi, the guard brought an uncharmed copy of Icha Icha Paradise. Sasuke turned and headed toward Naruto and Sasuke's hidden training field in the mountain. "He dropped it, so I used that opportunity," he said. After picking up a new pair of shorts and shirt, which he now wore, Naruto sat cross-legged and grew to a height of 6 feet and 2 inches, significantly larger than the 5'3" he had been prior to the growth. The moment he felt Sasuke, he stood, armor and spear ready. Naruto positioned himself behind his shield, which he had repainted with the Konoha symbol coming to a stop with the Greek letter lambda in the center. "Good, now this time don't hold back, I know you were. This time I want everything you have." The Uchiha brought his blade up just quickly enough to block the spearhead, and the Uzumaki slammed his shield forward, feeling it stop. "I'll do that, but you can't expect that I won't kill you, even if you are the supposed true king." Sasuke slowly drew his sword. Holding it in reverse grip, Naruto disappeared. Stopping almost 5 feet from Sasuke, he thrust his spear, letting it slide through his grip, tightening his fingers around the very end of the shaft, and swung it to the left, striking right where Sasuke landed. Sakura, Tsunade, and Kakashi had just arrived when they saw Sasuke barely avoid the spear. "Why do those two fight all the time, sensei?" Sakura inquired. Sakura shivered as Kakashi sighed, because Sakura, Spartan men are strange. Fighting is what they were bred for. Any army engaged in combat with Sparta would undoubtedly be terrified. Naruto grinned, deciding that anyone who could harm the shield was deserving of having him put it down. Sasuke struck the center of the shield with the heel of his foot, creating a tiny, nearly undetectable dent. After sealing his shield under his gauntlet, Naruto said, "Sasuke, I'm going to speed up a little." He then grasped the spear with both hands. Sasuke threw down his sheath and said, "All right, I'll do the same." Before Sasuke stepped back and his sword glowed a faint blue, he blurred in a quick slash that destroyed the Spartan spear. The two charged, spear meeting sword, Uchiha meeting Uzumaki, exchanging blows and defenses. With a smile on his face, Naruto took his Xiphos out of its sheath and stepped forward, pointing it at the boy with the raven hair. "Every waking moment of my life, I always measured myself to you and my father, and now I'm going to surpass both of you." Naruto's sword started to glow red, and his eyes changed from crystal blue and white to black and red, with a pupil that was indistinguishable from his iris. "This is my dujutsu, called the Arashi no aka, the Red Storm," he said as he stepped forward before disappearing and resurfacing directly behind Sasuke, crouching with his sword across his body before leaping while spinning and tearing the piece of stone Sasuke had just replaced. "Naruto, you may be some kind of king, but I've always been better than you. Here's the deal, you win. You can take this country in 5 years when Tsunade relinquishes her position to you. If I win, I will kill you, and take the position." Sasuke was wielding his sword in the same manner used to. Naruto then aimed his blade at Sasuke, saying, "I'll only accept it if you swear to not hold back anything, not a single ounce of power." Sensing the immense power of the Uchiha pursuing him, Naruto poured chakra into his legs and leapt high into the air, sheathing his sword, making hand seals at a dizzying pace, and then spitting a giant flame. "Deal?" Sasuke activated his dujutsu, the fabled Uchiha skill the Sharingan. They both started to glow with the power they possessed. Kaden. Tachi no Kai. He swung his sword as it ignited, sending a blade of flames in the area where Sasuke had just landed. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Sasuke dodged swiftly, then made more hand seals. "Dude." Naruto's attack continued with a flurry of shuriken, and Sasuke blocked with his coat, avoiding the injury that would have come, but he was thrown off his feet and landed in a heap, 8 meters away, and he started to get up, but he felt cold metal against his throat. A blade. Sasuke swung his blade, creating a gust of wind that put out the flame. Naruto declared, "Stay down, I've won this one." Sakura emerged from a bush, and Kakashi, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all smiled as he said, "All right, I concede, you've improved Dobi, good job." Sasuke then sheathed his sword and loosened his left coat, which was a dented mass of metal. "The man who sold me these said that this metal couldn't be broken, but this is still useless now," he said with a smirk. Sakura grinned and said, "Sasuke, you truly know how to get beat up. Sasuke. You've gotten strong physically, now I just need to teach you in my other ways," Jiraiya said with a grin. Kakashi said, "Your father would be proud. You'll make a good Hokage, if you can get through the paperwork, boring days and council meetings," Tsunade stated. Naruto waved, "I'm going to go to sleep though, see ya," before collapsing and fainting. Kakashi chuckled and turned to leave after saying, he used up all his energy. When Naruto woke up, he wasn't at the hospital or his house. He looked around, picked up his sword, and got to his feet. "It's okay, we're at the new house, this is our new place," Yukiha replied. "How much time have I been away?" Naruto inquired. "About 14 hours, it's morning now," replied she. "Breakfast is on the table, your armor's in the living room, go shower before you put it back on." Naruto grinned and said, "Yes, Mom, it feels wonderful to say that." He stepped out, dried off, and put on his shorts, shirt, and socks. His boots were in the living room as well. He armored himself, grabbed his sword, strapped it around his waist, and picked up a single-edged, tanto-like knife with a narrow, straight hilt and a blade of about 17 centimeters with a 13-centimeter handle. He had a sheath for it on his belt sideways so he could draw it left-handed for an offhand weapon. He threw his cloak around his shoulders and secured it in front of his armor. Naruto waited for his mission assignment in the Hokage's office. "You're embarking on a search and destroy mission with Sasuke. There are an estimated 500 mercenaries stationed close to the former Akatsuki's base. Their leader is Shinomori Kohaku, a missing ninja from the Rain Village, and we believe he may have had some contact with Orochimaru in the past, so proceed with caution," Tsunade said, passing them the file. "I recall him. We trained together, and he primarily practices Kenjutsu-based ninjutsu. His preferred styles are Suiden and Raiden." Sasuke looked up and said, "I can take care of him." Naruto seemed to be thinking before he spoke. "So why send us both?" "Sasuke, you heard why send me this as well?" Tsunade glanced at him before turning to face Sasuke. "Because you two are the strongest in the village. Your power probably rivals that of mine or Jiraiya's, so together, you two will become a feared power to those who are against us." Tsunade nodded as Naruto retorted, "So you just want to restore the power to Konoha, and to do it, you're using us to demolish a mercenary group. Get your supplies, you leave in 24 hours. In front of Musashi's store, Naruto and Sasuke were standing. "Why are we here?" "This is a weapon store, not an armor store," Sasuke inquired. "He'll make me a new spear because you broke mine, and I need a new coat because Musashi made me this armor. In addition, I want a bow." Naruto smiled and entered, and Musashi smiled as he looked up. "Looks like you brought some company, Naruto. How may I help you?" "I need you to fix my spear. Do you have any bows?" "And he needs a new coat to go with this one because I broke his old one. Additionally, could you finish everything by tomorrow as we are leaving on a mission?" Musashi scratched his head, gave it some thought, and then laughed. "Well, I'll fix your shield and give him some new coat, but I want you two to help me. I'll teach you the trade, make you apprentices, and then you can make your own stuff and maybe even some for me if you get good enough." Musashi laughed. "Course you'll only be working bellows and stuff, but it'll still speed up my work. Come on back." Musashi directed them to the smithy. In order for Musashi to work the metal, Sasuke and Naruto spent the next 8 hours pumping bellows. He described the metalworking procedures as they went along, and when they left with sore arms and famished stomachs, Naruto naturally offered the one item he hadn't had in a long time. Sasuke paused, looked at him, and gave it some thought. "Hey Sasuke, let's go and get some ramen. I haven't had it in a long time." Sasuke answered, "Well, neither have I. Let's go get some." Sasuke and Naruto sat at the ramen bar, each eating their bowl in silence except for the sounds of Konoha's streets. Naruto's curiosity broke the lull. "Why did you go back to Konoha instead of wandering around, Sasuke?" After hearing this, Sasuke sighed and started speaking, setting his chopsticks across the ceramic bowl. "One thought you hated this place," he said. "Just as you used to act foolish to conceal the hurt and hollowness, I feigned hatred to conceal my true love. Every time I attempted to kill you, Naruto, I did so because my brother claimed it was the only way to obtain Mangekyo, but I killed him without it. I never hated this place, anyone here, or anything other than my brother and Orochimaru. After discovering your true identity, I came to the conclusion that he wanted you dead because he and the Akatsuki were terrified of you. The descendant of Namikaze Minato, who may have been the most formidable shinobi to have ever walked the earth, and Leonidas. Consider Naruto. If all shinobi adopted the Spartan techniques, which were quiet and stealthy as individuals but even more effective as a team, they would be even more powerful. You ought to alter the academy's curriculum to include instruction in these abilities once you were appointed Hokage. Sasuke grinned, not smirking, but grinning. You have the potential to do great things, and you've shown some, but there's still room for growth. I believe that I will create a system that is similar to the Hokage that they used, but it won't be exactly the same. They will receive training from the age of 5 to 13. Just as rigorously and later in the day than our academy does. Not until 5, but perhaps 7 or 8. The irony is that I had the superior genes, but I always assumed you were superior due to genetics because I lacked resources and didn't train enough. You were superior. You were bad earlier, but we evened out, and now you're probably better in a normal fight. Guerrilla combat though, I may have one up on you. That's always been your specialty, though I can create an entire army and keep them going for hours and hours, so I have that on you. Well, let's get to bed. We have to stop by Musashi's tomorrow to get our gear. I'll see ya then. Naruto dropped a few coins and then rose and left the room. When they arrived at Musashi's shop the following morning, Naruto was fully outfitted, and Sasuke was wearing a black cloak that was similar to his old one but clasped in front of some leather armor that he wore by buttons on his shoulders. They were amazed to see that Musashi had 2 sets of new armor. One black and the other dark shining gray. A sword in a bag, a bow, 2 spears, and 2 shining hoplons. What's all this about, old man? Did Naruto ask. All right, I made Sasuke some armor, a spear and shield for him, a new sword for you that is more appropriate for your profession, and a bow. Musashi smiled and said, he can simply apply the seals he already has on his person to the weapons for free. Are you serious? This must be at least 10,000 ryu, if not more, Naruto yelled. Since you are my new apprentices, I must provide you with some advantages. A king needs his armor, and the king's best friend cannot afford to die either. In addition, I am well versed in your family history. Here you go, Musashi said, stepping away from the armor and weapons. Naruto examined his new blade, a chikuto, which had a brass hilt similar to a katana and a scarlet handle wrap. His new armor was a chest piece, almost like dark silver, smooth, but Naruto knew it would conform to his body when he put it on. It had a new helmet, greaves, and gauntlets, and its plume was red hair again. But this time it bore the Konoha symbol inside the Greek letter lambda. The shield was also made of dark metal, and it bore the same symbol as the armor. Sasuke's armor was similar to Naruto's, with smooth obsidian, but it had brass shoulder pieces on rivets that moved smoothly when Sasuke tested them. The back of the armor also had a slot where a sheath could be attached. Musashi produced a box and opened it, revealing a black and gold version of Naruto's sword, and said, if you want them, I made new fittings for your kusanagi, they'll fit in there perfectly. Sasuke grinned and said, sure, I'll fit it in a moment, after I put this on. You're well connected, Naruto. He took off his shirt, leather armor, and cloak, put on the musculata and gauntlets, and then put on the greaves. He wore a hite instead of a helmet, took out his kusanagi, and started fitting his blade with a new handle and hilt. He then clipped the sheath to his armor and slid his chikuto into it. Naruto also put on his armor. His cloak was clipped to the buttons before he turned, and his helmet, shield, and spear all disappeared under the seal. Naruto grinned and left, saying, thank you, Musashi. I'll keep this in mind when I'm Hokage. On the first day, Sasuke and Naruto ran at full speed in the direction of. They drew their killing knife and jumped, striking their target in the back, then slicing his carotid artery, dragging the body with him into the bush, watching the blood soak into the grass. The next morning, as they continued toward the base, they came upon a massive encampment, one about the size of a small village, perhaps larger. They set up camp several miles away from the actual base for safety, then tapped their supplies, which were fish that had been caught that day. While they passed a river they ate and then took their shifts while the others slept. After saying, wait, let me do something, Naruto activated his Arashi no aka Dujutsu, which allowed him to see his opponent's location through anything with a 360-degree field of vision. He took his bow from his shoulder, notched an arrow, pulled back on the string, carefully aimed, and let it fly, causing it to pierce the patrol square in the throat. 2 down. Naruto turned and fired another, killing another man. At this point, one of the patrols started yelling, alerting the others. We are being attacked. They moved from the bushes, spears and shields out, and Naruto made 100 bunshin before they started to kill the entire group. While Sasuke found Kohaku, he was then hit by an arrow in the temple, and 5 more fell before they reached their position. I see that you've returned to that pitiful excuse for a village. Sasuke, are you here to try to murder me? Wearing full samurai armor, with a katana and tanto tucked in the left side of his belt, Shinomori emerged from a tent. He was a tall man with golden eyes, ebony hair, and a large scar across his forehead. The king is lying in Konoha, where I have returned. He is the one who is most likely murdering your men at the moment. Despite not having full Spartan blood, you have never experienced the growth. I'll kill you. Shinomori Kohaku slid his left foot back, placing his left hand on the katana's sheath while his right hovered just above the handle. Sasuke sealed his spear and shield, pulled his blade from the sheath across his armor, and pointed it at Kohaku, flat side up. I'll never die. Kohaku ran with lightning speed, drawing his blade in an arc that would kill anyone who felt it. Sasuke blocked it with his gauntlet and struck out with his left fist, shattering Kohaku's armor like shards of glass. Kohaku swung his katana, but Sasuke's Chikudo stopped him. He drew his tanto and thrust forward, and after disarming him by catching the hand by the wrist, he picked up the tanto. In order to obtain a payment of 90,000 ryu from the Rain Country, Sasuke spat, turned, and began killing men with his sword and the tanto he had freed from Kohaku. His blade ignited in bright flames, and he raised it before bringing it down, splitting Kohaku from shoulder to thigh. He then decapitated the corpse and tied the head in a bag. They sat in the center of the camp, resting after Naruto and Sasuke had killed every man in the group. We must return to the village shortly. Shall we depart early in the day? Naruto inquired. They walked to the edge, and Sasuke said, "No, let's get out of here now. We'll torch it now and go." They both made hand signals before shouting together, "Gukaku number jutsu, Kaden," and releasing a stream of fire that quickly grew into a massive fireball, setting the camp on fire. After running through the night and arriving in the city in the morning, they presented their report inside the Hokage tower. Tsunade gave them their money and said, "Okay, get some sleep. You guys clearly need it. Your next mission is going to be in 2 weeks." Sasuke was about to go when he had an epiphany. "I request 1 week's leave to Rain Country to get my bounty for Kohaku's head." Tsunade answered, "Go ahead, but first get some sleep." Sakura came up to Naruto, who was already on his way home down the road. "Naruto, I was wondering something." "What is it?" "Would you be able to teach me how to wield a sword?" "Sure. Come to my house in the morning, I'll teach you then." She said, "All right, thanks, I'll see you then," and fled. Naruto went on to his house, entered, said hello to his mother, and started taking off his armor. Yukiha grinned and said, "I see Musashi made you new armor." "Yeah, it feels a little heavier, but it does stop blades and spears," Naruto said. "Sakura wants me to teach her how to wield a sword, so I have even more work to do. She used to want nothing to do, but now she wants me to teach her mom. Women are weird." "Isn't she the one who consistently mistreated you, son? She probably has a crush on you. She's probably embarrassed to ask for anything from you." "Hey Nissan, may I have the old set of armor since you have new ones?" Ichigo inquired. After saying, "Yes," Naruto turned and threw away his shirt, saying, "I'm not using it anymore, though I'm keeping my old swords. I may start a collection." Naruto entered the bathroom, turned on the shower, took off his shorts, boots, and socks, and gazed thoughtfully into the mirror. "Want to be with Sakura? You're just Naruto, no way." "I don't know about emotions, but she thinks you're hot," Kyuubi remarked from inside Naruto. "She does, at least physically, kid, I could sense it." "No, I suppose I've grown since I began the training, and I've lost some of the fat that was hanging around my cheeks. I'm taller, stronger, and I have to admit that I look good with long hair, but still Sakura has always had a thing for Sasuke. This is her. I'm telling you boy, she wants you. Show her your feelings, but be more subtle. With those human women, you have to be very subtle." "You believe so?" Naruto grinned and got into the shower, saying, "Well, I'll work on that then." Sakura lay thinking deeply as she gazed at the ceiling. "Where did the old you go, Naruto? It seems like you were the same person a while back, but now you've changed completely, as if someone replaced you with someone completely different. You've changed from being the same short, scrawny moron to being tall, having the body of a god, and having an intriguing quality about you. I need to find out more." Sensing the ghost of a sneeze, Naruto stepped out of the shower, put on his boxers, crossed the hall to his bedroom, tossed his shorts in the basket, and placed his sword, knives, bow, and quiver on the weapon shelf where he had previously kept his kunai and shuriken. "I have undergone significant change, haven't I, Kyuubi?" "You have indeed. Even your mindscape is better. It looks like an old palace, many marble columns and doors instead of pipes and cages. The only cage left is the one I'm in. Well, you did kill my father, so I'm gonna let you stay there, but I'll let you talk. Maybe I can talk to Jiraiya about letting you have physical freedom as a small fox but no access to your chakra. That would probably help you out some. I'd be damn glad to see the outside world. This cage has grown rather old after 18 years. Kyuubi gasped. Naruto laughed. Naruto climbed into his bed and said, the price of killing a Hokage. So comfortable. Well, good night, Mutt. Naruto responded, laughing alongside the demon, who laughed even harder. A dream, Naruto. You've got to call on the Spartans, bring them into your village. A battle approaches, call on the sand, it will help you. Naruto drew his blade and yelled, who are you? What are you doing here? My name is Ares, I am the Greek god of war. What I want you to do is request your Hokage to find the man named Stelios. He could be found in the rock country. Tell him of your lineage, ask him to come back, to move into the village with the remaining Spartans and then bring him to Tsunade. How do you know her? Boy, I am a god, I have watched your people because it promised bloodshed. The Kyuubi that is now inside you once pulled my chariot. Since he escaped I've watched you. I know all that is your life. Do this and you will lead the final Spartans and your shinobi in a battle of colossal proportions. Bring the pink-haired one. But not your sword, spear or shield, only your knives and bow. You will get new weapons superior to yours at the end of your journey. I will see to it that Hephaestus personally makes you these things. He makes armor that has only ever been pierced by Achilles himself. Smiled and extended his hand. Naruto questioned, how'd I know that any of this is true? Ask your Jiraiya, he knew Stelios. I will, if what you say is true then I will do this, if not, then I will not. So be it. Ares withdrew his hand. Dream conclusion. A knock on Naruto's door woke him up. Yes. Who is it? Inquired Naruto. When she said, it's me, Sakura, Naruto leapt to his feet and changed into black pants and boxers. Naruto then picked up a tank top and put it on after saying, you can come in now. Sakura exclaimed, so will we train today? I must first speak with the Hokage. Ares the god of war told me in a dream to go find someone. His name is Stelios. If I have permission, we will find him and train. If not, we will train. Naruto gathered his weapons and placed them in their proper locations. Sakura questioned, we? As in the two of us? After securing his knives, Naruto approached her and said, yeah, if we get the go-ahead, we'll be going to Rock Country to get this guy. You'll learn that there's more than swords and ninjutsu. I use knives, bows, spears, and pancration. All things that aren't swords. Swords aren't the only kind of power, nor are ninjutsu and taijutsu. You have to combine these things, Naruto said as he entered the room. You think that this guy is out there? You really think that adding the Spartans to the roster would strengthen us that much? Replied Tsunade. Yes, you've seen what 6 months of their training did to me. Now imagine a whole army of people stronger than me on our side. Alright, but they have to worry about their own board. Stelios can talk to me about it later. Jiraiya questioned, hold on, did you say Stelios? Yeah, what of it? Answered Naruto. Jiraiya chuckled and turned his shoulder as though in remembrance. You're going to want to make sure you're ready to wrestle. He was also called Iron Arms, because he was such a great wrestler. The idea of Jiraiya wrestling made Naruto laugh, and he said, I'll make sure that I am. Soon after, they departed in the direction of Rock Country. Sakura was worn out after several hours of movement. She had no trouble keeping up with most paces, but Naruto's was crazy. Certainly, he ran faster than most people, but even those with a reputation for speed couldn't compare to him. Sakura said, Naruto, let's stop. I'm tired. Unslung his bow, Naruto said, okay. Set up camp, I'll hunt, and vanished into the forest. He returned many hours later with a number of rather large rabbits that had all been impaled on a single arrow. It's rabbit tonight. You've gotten the camp set up, I see. Naruto grinned. The phrase, I have no skewers for these, so we'll just use the arrows. I have some tagged anyway, was one of his many slang terms that only she knew. Tagged was his way of saying sealed. Alright, do you want me to prepare them while you set up your stuff? Asked Sakura. The Spartan held up his cloak, took a few arrows from his quiver, and then impaled the rabbits on them. Nope, I've got my camp, plus you've prepared meals for me, so I'm returning the favor. He positioned all 4 of them, 2 for emergencies, around the fire silently. He got them ready. Sakura could not stand this silence, so she said something. Naruto, why didn't you kill Sasuke when you pierced him with your spear, or when you guys fought later on? He tried to kill you. Sakura asked. For a moment, Naruto's eyes grew aloof and dejected. Sasuke, Naruto started, Sasuke and I, We were always like rivals, but we were the same because we both knew the pain of loneliness. My mom thought I was dead until 6 months ago. He saw his slaughtered. I do fear he may go after Yukiha though. If he snaps again, then I will truly kill him. I can't lose what I've finally seen, and what I've tried so hard to grasp with my hands. Naruto rested his arm on his knee and looking up at Sakura. So you didn't kill him because he knows the same pain as you? Is that it? Yes. People look up at the statues of the Hokage and see heroes, but when I'm Hokage, I don't want my face on the wall that is carved on the wall. I want a statue of me watching over even them, but it will also have the names of you, Kakashi and Sasuke, carved in it to show that you helped me achieve what I will one day achieve. Naruto laughed. Enough talk. The rabbit is finished. Let's eat. They munched on their meals and talked about everyday things until a particular subject came up. Pink played across her cheek, slowly rising like the sunrise Naruto had seen so many times. Naruto, I remember you always used to try to flirt with me when we were younger, but I always shunned you regardless of how many times you saved me and helped me out. After leaning over and giving Naruto a single kiss, Sakura went back to eating, feeling ashamed of what she had done. Instead of making a daring move like she did, Naruto put his arm around her shoulders and drew her close to him. Sakura, thank you. You've helped me through just by being there. You've helped more than you think. It's unbelievable that I'm having this, Sakura thought. From his mental prison, the Nine-Tails said, subtle boy, that's what I mean. You do things like that and you have her totally. Naruto reflected, I've finally made some sort of progress with her. Naruto whispered, Sakura, you can sleep first. I'll take the first watch. When he heard and felt no reaction from her, he looked down and saw that she had dozed off using her sleeping bag as a pillow. He laid her down after reaching up and unclasping his cloak and wrapping it around her. Naruto remarked, I guess it's another long night, huh, Kyuubi? Yeah, it's going to be. Your body needs sleep. You sleep. I'll wake you if anyone comes within a 100-meter radius of you. Kyuubi replied. Naruto laid down and covered himself with the cloak he now shared with Sakura, saying, okay, make sure you don't clock out though. Sakura felt a weight on her chest. When she woke up, she looked up to see Naruto wearing a black cloak and blonde hair, and then she noticed a black tank top that belonged to his well-muscled chest. Then she recalled what had happened the previous evening. She muttered, I must have dozed off in his arms last night. Naruto grinned and said, you did? Are you aware that you talk in your sleep? After saying, good morning to you too, she got up and asked, who was watching the camp? Naruto placed his armor over his chest and his sword across his waist, saying, Kyuubi was. He's sleeping now, but he is useful. Then Greaves and his gauntlets. Who? Kyuubi? Naruto saw Sakura's expression shift from shock to horror. I guess I never told you. My father never really killed the fox. He sealed him in me. During my growth, we became closer. Did you know Ares had his chariot pulled by Kyuubi? You mean the nine-tailed fox is inside you? Yup, he's calmed down quite a bit. Prison does that to you. I'd still never let him out with his power, but we're going to learn to release him like a normal house fox. Naruto attached his cloak to his armor. A normal house fox? You're talking about turning Kyuubi, the king of demons. No, he's just a powerful one. Hades is the king of demon. Cerberus could beat Kyuubi in a fight. You're lucky he didn't attack. We couldn't have sealed him then. Naruto put out the blaze. Let's go. We'll be late if we don't leave soon. Naruto stopped about a mile from a town. After they had been running for 8 hours, he extended his arm. Stelios supposedly resides in this town. Rock Country holds a pancration tournament yearly. It's surprisingly popular here. Naruto laughed. Sakura inquired, how do you propose we find him? Simple, I'm going to win the tournament. It starts today. Naruto grinned. That's why I didn't want to be late. In the middle of the town, they discovered a sizable coliseum. Naruto noticed a sign that read, Tournament entry, 10,000 Ryu. The Spartan approached the desk and slapped 2 bills down. The clerk said, name please, Uzumaki Naruto. Okay. Go that way. You're fighting Arios Rakuman. Your fight's up in 3 rounds. Please sit with the other combatants until then. Your lady friend will have to sit in the stands with other viewers. The first round went swiftly to a man named Paris Alexandros, and the second round went to a fighter Naruto knew from his travels with Jiraiya, Maeda Ichiro. After taking off his armor and boots, Naruto entered the arena and faced Arios, a massive man who was built like a tank and wore enormous studded leather cestus. He easily cleared 2.5 meters. The man then moved away from that location, saying, no ninjutsu, this is a purely pancration fight, please no tricks. Arios chuckled, so you're a little ninja coward then? Naruto raised his hands and said, you're about to see that Spartan blood and training will be the future of them all. They are and will be unstoppable. You've never seen real ninja, have you? I'm descended from King Leonidas himself, Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato, and my father was also from his lineage. Naruto started the battle with a bone-crushing fist Naruto blocked with his hand open after Arios threw the blow aside and brought his own enormous hand in. He then went under the arm and threw his opponent to the ground with a shoulder throw. After catching Arios' heel, he fell onto his back and started using the Achilles leg lock, preparing to destroy the tendon. Naruto screamed, "Surrender, I'll kill you if you don't." Arios shouted, "Never, a true descendant of Greece would never think such things." He then screamed in agony as his bones, sinews, and tendons broke. The Spartan then arose, seized Arios by his shaven head, and slammed it into the hard, packed dirt while holding it in both hands, pulling it back. He flexed his muscles tightly against the soft windpipe and wrapped an arm around his throat. "You think that will do anything?" Arios chuckled as he rolled onto his shoulder and threw his weight over Naruto. Shocking him, he then pummeled him with his fists and elbows until he finally caught one, slamming a knee into his opponent's stomach before pushing with his foot and throwing Arios off him. Arios fought to stand up as Naruto stood there covered in blood, sweat, and dirt, his fists raised once more. "Get up! No Greek would ever let pain disable him, stand or die!" Naruto yelled with his ribs cracked. Arios barely managed to stand before being knocked down by Gastrizian's vicious shield-breaking kick. Naruto approached his opponent and looked down, saying, "Pathetic, surely such a weak man could never come from Greece." Naruto raised his heel high in the air and brought it down to smash Arios' neck and throat. Winner: Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto pitched his fists in triumph as the crowd erupted in a mix of applause and jeers. The commentator shouted into the microphone, "You will advance to face the victor of the round between Stelios and his opponent Remenikos Meniciades." Stelios stopped as he passed Naruto and turned around. Naruto smiled expectantly as Stelios said, "You boy, we're going to fight, even though this is the champion of another town. Here I am the champion and we are the strongest, so I will fight you." Everyone who hadn't yet fought gave him conflicting looks as he walked back to the bench and sat there. Both Stelios and Remenikos were roughly the same height, just over 2 meters, and had similar builds, but Stelios exuded confidence and pride, and he had long hair, whereas Remenikos had shaven hair. Additionally, they wore different colors. Remenikos wore black pants and no gloves, while Stelios, who was proud of his Spartan ancestry, wore scarlet red shorts and gloves. Stelios held up his gloved iron balls, and Remenikos raised his fists as well. "Nothing personal, but you're going to lose here. I have to fight that boy." Remenikos rushed in and leapt high, bringing in a devastating fist that, despite its power, hit nothing. Stelios then grabbed the man by the throat in his arm and declared, "I'm going to fight him. Someone like him never comes along anymore." Stelios fell on his back and put his legs around Remenikos' stomach, choking him with his powerful arms and tearing him in two. "You can't even avoid me, you're not going to win here," he said. Remenikos felt the vice grip smash his stomach and cause his air to quickly escape. Stelios stood up and yelled as the announcer pried the two apart after he repeatedly tapped the ground with his hand. "You are a coward. You can't even take your death like a man. You will never survive against another man who I wish to fight. I know he is strong. Only a true Spartan would wear long hair, and look there, he has lambda tattooed on his back. No man would wear lambda without fear of death from a Spartan." Stelios turned to face the bench. "You must be a Spartan." "I am descended from Leonidas himself, full-blood Spartan." "Whose son are you, boy?" Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto looked at him, who was approximately 20 centimeters him, who was, "I am Uzumaki Naruto, the new king to be, and I want you and the Spartans to come to Konoha. Tsunade will provide the land for you to create your lodging, but you will have to build it yourself. Come back and talk to her with us. If you are the king, then you will beat me. If not, then I will kill you and my army will come and destroy your city," Stelios grumbled. "Then I will beat you, and I will prove to you who I am." This is how the next 6 fights transpired. Tade Aryu defeated Furigata Amici. The more powerful Orishides Stolimnos defeated Toderi Sarikino. After Urimi Asano defeated Philides Manforos and Bartellus, Philides' brother, defeated Troseos Rutari, the next 2 bouts ended in injuries and fatalities, eliminating both fighters from the competition. Due to a leg kick, Alexandros Paris, who had won the first fight in the second round, now walked with a slight limp. Naruto got up and walked out to the field, saying, "Well, Stelios, it seems we have a fight, let's go. Spartan, you will face the most difficult uphill battle ever, as I have been the city's running champion for 10 years. Stelios took off his gloves and rushed at Naruto, kicking him. "I never had to fight with my full power, but I won't do that here, that will get me killed," he said. He dropped the shin of his left leg onto Stelios' collarbone, bringing him to one knee. Naruto took advantage of the situation and smashed a fist into his chest, then brought an elbow across Stelios' head. The Spartan commander then threw his hard fist into the younger Spartan's hard stomach. The young Uzumaki was knocked out cold by this power, but he didn't falter. Instead, he slammed his elbow down, put his arm around the commander's neck, and pulled him into a guillotine choke. He bucked back and started crushing the bigger man's windpipe, catching Stelios' left arm to prevent him from suffering any painful blows to the chest. Stelios, I never wanted to grapple. Jiraiya told me of you, but this will be the only way to get you down. In one powerful motion, he wrenched his arm free and slammed it into Naruto's chest, causing him to go limp and unconscious. He felt Stelios stand, so he increased the pressure and brought him back to his knees. Every blow he took and delivered was more powerful than any other blow he had ever felt or dealt, even more powerful than Maeda Gai's most powerful blows. Naruto also seemed to be, as he shifted and stood just as the announcer was about to declare a tie. Stelios stirred, and Naruto brought one last fist down before collapsing to his knees. The audience erupted in applause as the announcer exclaimed, "Winner, Uzumaki Naruto." Chanting his name, Naruto experienced the thrill of victory after defeating the strongest and most seasoned champion of 10 years. Orishides Stolimnos was defeated by Tade-Ryu. Bartelis Manforos defeated Urimi Asano, and the 3-round bouts were scheduled to proceed as follows. Uzumaki Naruto vs Alexandros Paris. Bartelis Manforos vs Tade-Ryu. 2 bouts remained, but they were scheduled to take place 12 days from now, 6 days after the initial tournament. Naruto's schedule would demonstrate that he was, to put it mildly, excited. It is 6 a.m. now. He had been training for 2 hours. He would rise at 4 and train until Stelios woke up at 8. They would prepare breakfast for Sakura, Stelios' wife Helen, their son, and themselves after sparring until 9 o'clock. For 5 people, they prepared a large amount of food. Stelios and Naruto frequently engaged in eating competitions before training from 10:30 until noon, when Helen and Sakura brought them lunch from 1 to 5. Naruto would then run in circles around the Colosseum from 5 to 6, he would rest and have dinner. He would then take a shower and go to bed between 7 and 4. After a few hours, Helen, Sakura, and Stelios' son, Aeneas, stood watching Naruto and Stelios spar. They exchanged blows, with both of them obviously sacrificing strength in favor of speed. Helen then posed a question. Does Naruto always train this vigorously? Yes, when he's really trying to get strong. Sometimes he doesn't even sleep, he trains straight through the days. He once went 7 days without sleep just to train. I doubt he slept very much when he went through the growth. He's going to train himself into the ground. Stelios was much like that. You see, when we were young he was small and the weakest in his class. He would stay up for days, sometimes weeks on end to train, and it paid off. Now he leads his own army. I never used to believe he could make Hokage, but now, it's different. I think he will. No, I know he will. You have much faith in him. I do. Why? Because he always had faith in me. There's more, I can tell it. Sakura's eyebrows arched in question. You love him, I can see it. Sakura started to think, I like him, but I don't love him. Helen pushed her blonde hair out of her face and grinned rememberedly, saying, I can see it. I looked at Stelios with those same eyes. When Stelios went to sit with the other spectators, he saw that Naruto had created a shadow clone and was actually training with himself. Well, that's not what I meant, but it will work, Stelios said. Okay boy, that's enough for today. It's been too long since I've trained this hard for this many days in a row. I'm simply too old for it now. Train with yourself. Sakura retorted, he does that a lot. Cage Bunshin was his specialty. Naruto, you owe me some training, she said. What? Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Stelios, can you bring me 2 swords? Stelios grinned and said, sure, promised your woman you'd teach her the sword? She's not my woman, we're friends. Stelios grinned, went to get swords, and said, remind yourself that Naruto. He brought 2 blades back. They resembled a typical Xiphos, but they curved out and then pointed in a single, smooth shape. Each one had a 60 cm blade and a 15 cm handle. Their straps and sheaths were made of leather. These are the swords my army uses. We value them for their cutting and stabbing capabilities. They aren't the traditional Xiphos used by the Spartans of old, but they are equally functional. You will use this when you lead it. He gave them all one. He held it up and then proceeded to the cutting post, where he sliced the 20 cm wooden pole clean through in a single slice. This is an interesting style. I should have old Musashi make me one. He's the best blacksmith in our town. He made all my armor, my arms, and everything. That's your first task, in one cut, slice, not smash this pole. She walked to the pole, swung directly across, and inserted the edge just a few millimeters into it, saying, "I can do that no problem." He showed a very shallow but extremely deadly cut by holding his blade flat. Seems you need some schooling on blade work. Never cut straight across on a person unless you mean to decapitate or disembowel him. When you want to do that, you will hold the blade like this. He slowly swung at an angle to show her the form, then stepped back and let her try. She didn't make it all the way through, but it got much farther, about halfway through. No, when you wish to decapitate someone you cut like you did, but when you wish to remove an arm or cut them in two, you cut at an angle like this. Good, now once you can slice all the way through, I'll show you a method for splitting the helmet. Naruto grinned. You must enjoy feeling superior, not particularly, but it is something new. Well, enjoy it while you can. I'll surpass you again. Let me know when you're finished. I'll be in the other training room hitting the bags. Okay. He laughed when he saw Sakura blush and said, "And hey, Sakura, good luck." Stelios had said some interesting things while Naruto was pounding the heavy leather bag filled with sand and thinking. I know I had a thing for Sakura when I was a genin, but now that I can achieve my dream, I've changed. What do I really feel for her? It's clear from your thoughts that you have a deep affection for her boy. If a man is shown something that he doesn't care about, he doesn't give it any thought. However, if he is shown something that he might care about deeply, he will think about it continually until it drives him crazy or he pursues it. How can you be so knowledgeable about something you don't know? Being immortal causes you to think and comprehend a lot of things. You will lose her if you don't pursue her. After that, I'll pursue Sakura. Naruto, your woman has split the post. She's making good progress. Okay, I'll be there in a moment. So she is your woman? No, not yet anyway. Ahaha, I see. Well, no one has sex in my house other than me. When Naruto entered the main training room, he saw a severely damaged post that was missing the upper half. Why is it that every single person I train with is either perverted, psychotic, or both? He asked. I see you've done it well. Now you have to learn to fight. Stelios, do you have any wooden swords? I do. I assume you want me to grab them? Yes please, as you do know where they are. Stelios returned after 1 second, with 2 wooden swords that resembled the ones they had previously used. Sakura held the other, so Naruto picked up one and faced her. He appeared to be standing behind a shield as he extended his left arm. Sakura adopted a similar position. Sakura mostly defended while Naruto started off with basic swordplay, sideways and downward strikes, and the occasional thrust. Stop, your goal is to attack the other person. I'm slowing down to give you a chance to parry. Swing at me and I'll show you. Without thinking, Sakura swung her sword, and Naruto threw it away while keeping his dummy blade near her throat. Naruto took a step back and parried a thrust, saying, "Good, you showed no hesitation again." With a malicious grin, he fell beneath the weapon as she swung. She gave a startled yelp as he approached her from behind, putting his forearm across her chest, his ankle behind hers, and bringing her to the ground. That was a cheap shot. That's combat, opportunity and skill. She said, it was still cheap, and when he extended his hand, she grinned and dragged him down. He laughed as he landed beside her. That was cheap. It wasn't combat or anything, just plain cheap. Then we're even. Naruto got up and dragged her up with him, saying, let's get back to training. Stelios is probably already filling that old head with perverted thoughts. Naruto, you have a guest. He says he's from Konoha. He offered no name, Helen replied. Naruto said, all right, I'll be there, and started to move in the direction of the house's gates. He spotted a shinobi from Anbu Black Operations. May I ask what you're doing here? Last I checked, Tsunade knew what I was here for. Naruto, Tsunade urges you to come quickly. We've been attacked. Some unknown army caught us totally unprepared and slaughtered almost all of our ninja. We're at war with them now. We need the Spartans to come from behind and attack the enemy's camp. No, we're not going to fight like cowards. Find a way to leak false information that there's a force of your special ops men coming from behind. They'll focus their forces that way and then we'll take them from there and you can handle the rest. Stelios replied. But I will not lead my army into combat. What? You will, Naruto. You're destined to be the king, so you will lead your soldiers, said Stelios. I'll do it. We'll leave in tomorrow at daybreak. Rouse the men, and Anbu. Make sure Tsunade knows of this, Naruto said to the ninja. Yes, sir. The Anbu swiftly vanished. Naruto informed his friend, Stelios, inform the men of this, and I'll require a shield and spear. Yes, sir. How is it you lead so well at the mere mention of war? Asked Sakura. It's in my blood. Naruto recalled the words of the god Ares. I have a feeling this one will change the course of Konoha for good. When Stelios knocked on Naruto's door to wake him up early, he did so. My king, I come to tell you that your army is ready to march. It is dawn, please be ready soon. Unbeknownst to Stelios, Sakura had sneaked into his bedroom the previous evening. Yes, Stelios, thank you, I'll be ready soon, leave me. I have some thinking to do, Naruto said. A flashback to the late hours of the night before. A brief knock on the door was heard. Yes, replied Naruto. Naruto, I just had a rather strange dream, will you listen? I want to tell someone. Sure, dreams often mean something important, so what was it? There was a plaque at the base that read, Uzumaki Naruto, the king who was king for one battle. I saw a statue that looked like you wearing your armor, but there were hundreds of spouts coming from you, and they all poured blood. I have to admit, Sakura, you have a lot of weird dreams. Have you ever considered seeing a dream interpreter? Naruto made a joke. I'm serious, Naruto, I'm worried that you may die in this battle. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if you did. You have to realize, Sakura, that while I may be insanely strong, the Spartans I'm leading have been training like this for their entire lives. Plus I have my Kage Bunshin. I'll tell the men to let the first few lines be made up of me. Then as they are broken down, the Spartans will recover the lines. A phalanx is an incredibly unorthodox formation for shinobi or otherwise, plus Tsunade called us. So we're surely going to have Suna and other allies we have. Plus we'll be arriving at dawn, from the east. The sun will be behind us, so they won't be able to see us as well. He hugged Sakura. I'll be fine. Worry about yourself. I can't protect you as well if I'm fighting for my soldiers and my own life. Brushed her locks. Is it still possible for us to spend tonight together? What if you don't make it? Yes, but why stay in here when you'll see me in the morning? Sakura's hands moved to the straps of her dress as Naruto asked. After giving him a passionate kiss, she said, because Naruto, unlike Sasuke, I actually love you, and there's something I wish to give you. Naruto paused to speak. Sakura, are you certain? You shouldn't do anything you're unsure of. I'm sure, Naruto, she said, sliding off her dress and going to his bed in just her panties. Naruto grinned and took off his shirt, which was just his boxers and a shirt after he had just finished taking a shower. Flashback termination. Naruto climbed out of his bed and said, Sakura, wake up, it's time to get ready to go, we're leaving for home. Sakura muttered, HNN, Naruto, you make a good bed warmer. Come on, we have to go. Naruto got up, and the few items they had on the previous evening were strewn all over the room. He first took off his boxers and pants, put his knives on his belt, put on his tank top and musculata, put on his greaves and gauntlets, took out his bow, put his sword on his back, and then clasped his cloak in place. Sakura had finally gotten out of bed, started getting dressed similarly, and took the sword that Stelios had given her. The two of them left the room, with Stelios grinning. I thought I told you no sex in my house, boy. Sorry, but I was under the impression that all Spartans made love to their woman before marching to battle. The rules are different when the woman is as fierce with hands or blade as the men that my king leads. Stelios chuckled. You can make love to her on the battlefield if you so wish, just not in my guest room, please. I'll remember that, even though you'll soon be living in what will soon be my land, not this house. Stelios turned and said, well, let's go. The soldiers are waiting. Oh wait, Sakura, I have some gifts. Our armor maker had some custom armor made upon Naruto's request. Helen entered with a set of armor for Sakura. How are you certain that I'll fit into this? The other three people in the area glared at Sakura when she said, I once rivaled Jiraiya in terms of perversion. I can tell a woman's measurements by one glance. Sakura put it on over her dress, and it fit perfectly. She put on the helmet and shield, and she put on the greaves and gauntlets. You have a spear waiting for you with mine by the front gate. You almost look like one of the men, except for the shape of the armor, and you have much better legs. Stelios swiftly sidestepped Sakura's fist. Keep your comments to yourself, Stelios, or I may have to use you as my shield, said Naruto. Stelios laughed hysterically. Ha ha, let's go. One soldier erred by yelling out what many of the men were thinking as the soldiers waited for them at the city gates and saw Sakura, Stelios, and Naruto. What is that woman doing with our weapons and armor? She will undoubtedly make us weaker. With a spear aimed at his chin, she disappeared as soon as the man yelled. You're going to see what this woman can do. Sakura, what's your name, soldier? Did Naruto ask. What gives you the right to ask? My name is Trimenos. With a defiant tone, he asked, and Naruto took off his helmet. You should never speak to your king in that way, he yelled. Sakura, take his head. Sakura drew her sword and placed her shield in front of her, gladly, driving her spear into the ground. What a king, letting his woman die for him instead. You're the one who will die here. I would much rather fight alongside her than anyone else. The Haruno spun and slammed her shield across Trimeno's side before using her sword to decapitate him. Sakura smirked as she easily blocked Trimeno's spear thrust and thrust her sword. Does anyone else question her strength? Naruto yelled. No, King. One soldier moved forward and bowed on his knee as the army yelled. My brother Trimeno's may have been rude, but I assure you that I am glad to fight alongside both you and our king. My name is Horstaeus. Naruto remarked, you're wise to avoid her. She is not only my lover but also my personal pupil. Now get up and let's march to Konoha, he said, drawing the spear from the ground. To victory. He yelled, thrusting the spear into the air. Soldiers shouted and did the same. The soon-to-be king handed the spear to his lover. You've done well. Sakura grinned and they marched, saying, I couldn't let him make fun of women. Tsunade would have ripped him to pieces. The legion of ferocious warriors had long since fallen into darkness, and they were now gathered around a number of fires. Many men wanted to know who their new king and general was, and at the moment, he was conversing with a monstrous man named Galnimos. Why did you allow your significant other to put her life in danger on the battlefield tomorrow? Because, unlike your women, in Konoha, kunoichi or female ninja are a vital part of our army. Why our leader the Hokage is a woman. Her name is Tsunade and she's seen more battles than you will ever see in your life. Are you implying that you are not yet your village's Hokage? No, but I will be soon, and I will see to it that the Spartans are remembered throughout history. I will be there fighting for you until my glorious death, my king. Naruto stood and started to move through the army, chatting with soldiers all over the legion. A good man. I hope you live a glorious life as well as have a glorious death, he said. On the third day, they would reach the village with the sun behind them, blinding the soldiers who had fought them. They had woken up early, planned to move again, ate rapidly, and then moved again from dawn until dusk. When they arrived, they saw a group attacking Konoha's fortified walls and their soldiers. Naruto stopped them, unslung his bow, and fired an arrow into the air. Thousands of samurai and mercenaries turned and charged, and the Spartans were prepared in the phalanx. Naruto created his seal for Kage Bunshin and produced 3 lines of 20 clones. All in phalanx formation. He was in the front line, and they waited for the battle, but the entire formation abruptly stopped, and one man wearing samurai armor stepped forward. You must be Uzumaki Naruto. I heard you'd be bringing an army, but this is much larger than I suspected. Now, I want you to know who I am and why I'm here. My name is Shinomori Arima. You and that Uchiha have killed my brother. Now I want you to bow to me or I will destroy your city. Hey, prior to bowing, I will spear you. If you ask Sasuke, he would agree. Don't waste any more time and get out of here before we get impatient. Naruto chuckled, and Arima burst out laughing. You underestimate me. Sasuke has already joined me. You tell lies. Uchiha, come on in. As the ranks dispersed, Sasuke advanced in his gleaming black armor. You are a traitor. Naruto stepped forward and threw his spear. Sasuke caught it. As he lifted his arm, you could see his skin marked with the curse seal. Why would you betray us again? For power. Sasuke pulled his Chikudo from behind him and advanced, setting the ground behind him on fire with every stride. Before I lose control, Kyuubi, how many tails can I get? Remember that I couldn't help you the last time, boy. Yes, I will murder him myself. Sasuke blocked Naruto's thrust after he ran forward with his sword drawn and swung his blade. Naruto then leaned back and swung again, but was blocked by a tanto. He then swung and lashed out with the edge of his shield, but Sasuke caught it and threw the shield aside. You can't hope to beat me while I'm like this. I'll kill you for your treason. Naruto took up his spear in his left hand, thrust forward, then slashed with his sword, turning his spear and using the other butt cap as well. Sasuke was struggling to keep up with the rapid succession of thrusts and slashes, but he smirked and unfurled the wings that Orochimaru had given him. He then leapt high into the air, piercing one of Sasuke's arms with his spear. Sasuke grabbed the spear, allowing Naruto to draw him in, and he reached behind him and used his knife, putting it deep into his stomach, pulling it out, and then planting it in the abdominal aorta, just to the left of his spine. You and I should never have crossed Konoha. I'll make sure the Uchiha are expelled from this world. Now die. Naruto flung him to the ground, yanking his spear free and driving it through Sasuke's skull before landing and extracting it. Shinomori, do you really want to fight me now? Shinomori, who appeared as pale as a linen sheet, said calmly before yelling at his soldiers. Go back. These folks are too strong for us. As the soldiers fled the fight, Naruto turned to face them and raised his spear while they chanted his name. Later that day, Stelios, Sakura, and Naruto were standing in Tsunade's office. Naruto, it seems you brought some good soldiers here, and I must say to Sakura that armor suits her. Stelios, you and your soldiers have permission to take any apartment or house that is vacant. Thank you, milady. I ask that you send some of your best to bring our wives and children from our homes and escort them here. I'll send them right away. Shizune, get our best Anbu to Rock Country and have them get every Spartan's family and all their possessions. Yes ma'am. So Naruto, we have to discuss this. While I am still able to lead this village, I am getting quite a bit older than I used to be, Tsunade said. What are you trying to say? Naruto's eyebrows went up. We might require a new Hokage in the near future. I'm saying, are you aware of anyone who might be able to fill the role? Well, there is this one guy the first no, I'll have to talk to him though, Naruto laughed. Alright. What the heck? Will you accept the position? There is a ton of paperwork and some hard work involved. I'll do it. Great, there's a ceremonial speech, it's made on the 25th of January. I imagine that the citizens will want to know of your condition, and the truth of what your father really did on that night. I'll show them that even though I contain the demon that I'm not him. Tsunade waved him away, saying, for now, show Stelios around the village. You got it. Naruto had been Hokage for 3 years. He was sitting in his office now, going over his current paperwork with the help of his shadow clones. He had kept up with paperwork so much that at times he had actually run out of things to do. He was thinking, he had been dating Sakura for 3 years. He loved her, and he wanted to pop the question, but how would he go about it? Go ahead and do it, Boy Kyuubi advised. Get her a ring and do the whole kneeling thing. Where can I do it, though? Shall we have dinner together? Show her a hidden location. What? As he climbed into the window, Jiraiya grinned and said, dinner's the classiest way to do it. So you're finally asking the question, huh kid? Your father was also in a panic. I'll do dinner then. As Naruto strolled through the village, he saw how much he had changed. Spartans were walking among shinobi. Kids were fighting in the front yards with wooden shields and practice swords. He had incorporated the Greek fighting system into the academy's curriculum, and he had created gauntlet-like shields that transformed into full-fledged hoplons after chakra was channeled through them. When Naruto discovered a group of children bullying a smaller child, he went over to break it up. The emblem was altered so that it was inside the symbol lambda. What's wrong with this? 4 kids turned to face the Hokage as Naruto asked. The girl looked up at him and said, this girl is a freak. Look at her eyes. Her eyes were crimson red, with 3 marks surrounding her pupil that resembled tiny flames. You girl, whose son are you? Naruto took him in his arms. My daddy was Uchiha Sasuke, but he's been gone for a long time. My mom left me when I was born and I've been living in a town in Fire Country outside of here. The girl appeared to be around 5 years old. How did you get in here? You're going to join me live now. Even at 5, the child's eyes were filled with pain as she looked up and said, I wanted to find my daddy, so I snuck in with a shipment of weapons. Do you know where he is? Naruto sighed. He betrayed us long ago. He's far away. Come on, let me get you some food and clean you up. Would you like to help me? Yes. Would you please give me some ramen? It's my favorite, but they wouldn't let me have it at the orphanage. She smiled. Yes, it's also my favorite. Naruto led the child to his once frequented spot, saying, I know a really good place. Ayame. After Tuchi's death a few years ago, Ayame took over, and Naruto sat down at the bar and said, I need 2 bowls of miso ramen. Ayame started preparing the broth and noodles, saying, okay, 2 coming up. Whose kid is this? She inquired. It appears that Sasuke began his clan revival approximately 5 years ago. Since then, her mother has passed away, and she has been living in an orphanage. Naruto grinned at the young child and said, I'm going to take her in. What's your name, young lady? It was Uchiha Konoha. That smiled. With a smile, Ayame gave the girl the finished bowl of ramen and gave Naruto his as well. They broke their chopsticks and started eating. Well, my name is Ichiraku Ayame. I'm glad to meet you, and when your father was younger, this one here and your dad would come here a lot. After they finished their meal, they returned to the Namikaze Uzumaki residence. Naruto entered and brought the young Konoha inside, and everyone turned to stare at the young girl. Who is this, Naruto? When Sakura saw Konoha's eyes, she asked, is this the daughter I believe it to be? Naruto gave a nod. When Naruto introduced the girl, Sakura grinned and knelt down to her level. Yes, it's Sasuke's daughter. Konoha meets Sasuke's other teammate, Haruno Sakura. Hello. This is Sakura. Welcome to our home. Here are Naruto's mother, Yukiya, and younger brother, Ichigo. They both greeted her before Naruto spoke once more. Could you please clean her up and put her in a bed, Sakura? Sakura gave him a quick glance before grinning. Of course, I will. You must have fed her already. Are you still hungry? I could eat. Naruto unbuttoned his cloak and started taking off his armor, which he still wore underneath it and which now had the fire symbol on the front. He unbuckled the armor and placed it on his stand, along with his groin protector, gauntlets, and greaves, and he also placed his sword there, leaving only a very simple assortment of clothes and his knives. He then sat down with his family and started talking about the day. An hour or so later, Sakura emerged and invited Naruto out onto the porch. "Naruto, you brought Uchiha into our house. Every single Uchiha you've ever known has tried to kill you." She was obviously upset. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be 5 years old and without family, having to sneak and steal every meal? This 5-year-old girl has experienced the same life as me. What if everyone harasses and abuses you just for being you? No, well, what if the girl you love told you to screw off all the time and you were constantly told you would never achieve your goals? I was going to propose to you tonight, but if you're going to be full of this bigotry, then perhaps I'll reconsider. I have never once tolerated it in my life. You're one of the only remaining people who understand that." Naruto turned as she asked if he knew where Sasuke was. "It tore my heart in two to know that I struck the killing blow, that I watched in satisfaction as his life force bled from his body." He entered, retrieved his cloak, and left his porch into the night. "Where are you heading?" Sakura inquired, her eyes starting to well up with tears. "A shinobi shouldn't care where her Hokage goes at 7 a.m. tomorrow. You report for your mission. Be on time," Naruto said, and left. Sitting atop his father's monument, he gazed over his country. He had always dreamed of becoming Hokage, but it felt weird and awful at the moment. He had never yelled at Sakura in that manner or at anyone he loved. "You're losing the edge you had, boy. Careful, I may sneak out and terrorize your village again," Kyuubi chuckled. "I'll run myself through and drag you straight into hell with me if you make a joke about that." Naruto was quite composed. He only became tense when he sensed someone standing behind him at that moment. He stood up and pulled out his spear. Naruto raised his spear and asked, "Who goes there?" He was approached by a cloaked figure that emerged from the tree line's shadow. "A war is coming to my king." The man had no armor of any kind and was dressed in a black cloak. "What are you talking about? I mentioned an assault on Konoha that will be so powerful that it will rock the city to its core. The army leaves nothing in their path and moves like ghosts. Be careful," the man said. "How are you aware of this?" "I was one of them. They teach the men in this army to be unstoppable by taking their souls." The man vanished as if he had never been there, and Naruto stood atop the mountain, overlooking his entire village. "I escaped and came to warn you of them. They've heard of your power and come from far north of Gokuni's borders. You must prepare for this. I won't allow them to burn. Father, you defeated Kyuubi in one way, and I'll use my army to destroy this one, and you will guide me." The Hokage was overcome with guilt after Naruto said, "I know you will." Since it was only 9, perhaps he could solve the issue. Naruto would wake up at the slightest sound, so she had to be completely silent when leaving their room in the morning. On multiple occasions, he would wake up violently, and she had to avoid everything that came her way. Sakura was crying in her room because she had never seen Naruto so angry at her before, but it did make her realize what she had said, and to be honest, she felt terrible for it. When Naruto knocked on the door, she let him in, but she was startled out of her reverie when she saw that he was standing with both hands beneath his cloak. "Naruto," she started, but he cut her off with her own words. Naruto turned to face her and said, "Sakura, I'm sorry I snapped at you. It's just that I don't want Konoha to grow up like I did. You took her off the streets and brought her into our home. How can I make it up to you? I should apologize. I was thinking irrationally. Why would Konoha be here to kill you?" Naruto grinned. "Well, there was one thing I was thinking," he said. "What was that?" She arched her brows. He produced a tiny box from beneath his cloak, which he opened to reveal a ring set with diamonds and emeralds. "Get married to me?" Naruto asked. Never once in her life had her mind gone out the window so quickly. She tried to form the word yes, but nothing happened. "Sakura?" Naruto felt his love on top of him and was pushed onto the bed as he looked up, alarmed to see tears. "Why even inquire? Of course I will," she said, kissing him, and the evening officially began. 3 months have gone by. When Sakura was planning the wedding, Naruto had long since stopped talking to her and was unaware of everything that was going on around them. As he paced his office, he was thinking about what the man had said to him. He started installing more wall guards and sent patrols up north almost every day, asking them to report anything that seemed even the slightest bit suspicious. Some people called him paranoid, but he needed to get ready for the Chunin exams, which Suna and Konoha had worked together to plan. Gaara and Temari would visit the village while Kankuro would act as a temporary sit-in. Shikamaru immediately turned pale upon hearing this, knowing that Temari would undoubtedly cause trouble again. Naruto sighed and sat in his chair, contemplating the stress that was about to continue to build up. Shikamaru, you're right, this is troublesome, he said. Their leader stood above the village, grinning as his soldiers readied themselves for battle, while men gathered in the mountains far to the north. Soldier. We get ready for fighting. A fell swoop will annihilate the Spartans and Konoha. As his soldiers yelled battle cries, the man-shaped entity stood. Naruto was concerned because he hadn't had any sleep issues since he killed Sasuke. He was standing on the newly renovated tower overlooking the city, which had been remodeled after his brother destroyed the top 2 floors while playing with explosive tags. The first floor had mission assignments and requests, the second floor had the council meeting room, the third floor had the Anbu briefing room, and the fourth and final floor had the Hokage's office. The first basement was a special holding cell for artifacts of all kinds, and the next basement up was a jail cell for S-class inmates, which allowed no chakra flow beyond the bare minimum of a normal body. What do you suppose it is, Kyuubi? Quite literally, Naruto asked his inner demon. I believe it to be an omen this army of ghosts is coming, and you can't sleep. Kyuubi, who had never really heard from the monster, stated gravely, I feel some evil nearing. I know you may not trust me, but if you let me fight this army with you I may be able to help win it for you. I never imagined that the great nine-tailed fox would say that he would assist the village that he had attacked 21 years prior, but if you try to turn against us, I'll find a way to get you to a healthy fighting size and maintain it so I can send you back to your prison right away and hurt you a lot. The old frog sage had taught Naruto some things about seals, but he still had a ways to go. He would talk to the man about it tomorrow. I'll talk to Jiraiya, he'll help me. Kyuubi had just taken an oath that would instantly kill him if he ever broke it. I swear on my very spirit, which is all I am, that I will fight only for you. How can I be sure you're being honest? After taking this oath, I promise that if I ever betray it, I will die in the most agonizing manner. A spirit can. All of my chakra will be gradually drained away from me until I'm nothing more than a memory. That's the way spirits are. Tomorrow, I will discuss the seal with Jiraiya. The Hokage sat on the ground and started to clear his mind. For the time being, I need to meditate. They were all but invisible, moving so fast that the only indication that they were there was the occasional flash of light on a sword handle or hilt. They were dressed in forest-themed colors, such as green, brown, and black, and had metal claws on their hands and metal points on their boots. They were larger and taller than the average human, with the leader standing ahead taller than the others. As a convoy passed by, they stopped and disappeared into the underbrush, and one person looked down, and the last thing he ever saw was a glint of metal, followed by red. A knock on Naruto's office door was answered, and an Anbu carrying a scroll entered the room. A whole convoy of merchants is said to have been massacred by what appears to be thousands of claw marks. Sir, other than the merchants, there is no indication of anyone coming or going. According to the Anbu, the area is north of Rice Country. Please give each man we have on missions a call. Tell the Hokage to bring men and to come himself, and send men to Sanagakure. We're going to get ready for battle. Naruto got up and summoned Kakashi and Jiraiya. What do you need, kid? Jiraiya asked. He explained the conversation that he'd had with Kyuubi the night before, asking if the seal could be made. Yeah, I'll show you how. Regarding this army, are you certain? I know who they are, and he's telling the truth. The demon shadows are their name, 3 times the strength of a single man. These warriors are formidable. Once we caught one to even subdue him. 5 men were needed. Every torture technique we tried failed. Then he got away with killing 15 Anbu before I killed him with Chidori. But I'm not sure who is in charge of them because their leader is supposed to have passed away a long time ago, Kakashi said. The Cyclops is right. They are humans with lesser demons infused into them. My younger brother, Shares, the demon fox, was the leader. In order to lead them, he assumed a human form. Maybe he had embodied himself in a deceased person, but that would require a lot of chakra capacity. Kyuubi screamed. Naruto delivered the message, and Jiraiya considered it plausible. Something clicked in Naruto's mind, and he said aloud, but who? Only Orochimaru and Uchiha Madara were wicked enough to do that sort of thing. Sasuke was a strong person in general, but if he had Shure's power and an army of demon shadows behind him, he would be a formidable opponent if their presumptions were correct. Well, Jiraiya, if you'd be kind enough to show me that seal, I'd appreciate it a lot. Naruto shuddered. Not quite. Sasuke was also an evil person. He had an insane chakra capacity and the willingness to gain power is there. It's likely he's the one that's leading them now. So, if you're ready, let's begin. Yeah, let's get going. His demon shadows could take one or the other at any given time, but they might be hard-pressed by the sheer number of men that Konoha had, and with the application of the phalanx they would be hard-pressed to get past the soldiers on the front line, plus the shinobi that were almost definitely going to be flanking his men. The army set up camp for the night, and the leader sat in his tent thinking, spinning his knife in circles between his fingers, wanting to destroy the strongest military force in the world, one that had existed since the Shinobi Wars. and would be even stronger with the addition of the Spartan army. The leader was starting to get a headache from all the variables involved in this battle, so he lay on his cot when a soldier entered carrying an Anbu by the arm. "We discovered this man skulking about our camp. Sir, how should we handle him?" The voice was half human and half alien. The soldier left them alone after the leader said, "I'll take care of him, leave him here." "So, who's under this mask?" When the man-monster reached for the mask, the man turned his face and remained silent, saying, "We have a feisty one here." He smiled, pulled out his long blade, and thrust it in again. "Well, I was going to let you go as soon as you answered my questions, but now I'll have to kill you," he said, tearing through the man's leg without yelling. "All right. I'm Aramaki Uryu, an Anbu under Hokage Uzumaki," the man said, yelping and huffing. "I'll answer your questions, just quit stabbing me." He felt the mask come off. "He sent me to track down this ghost army's leader, which I take to be you. Tell him that Uchiha Share's Sasuke is the leader, and I'll let you live." Share's Sasuke, whose skin is coal black and his teeth are ivory white, smiled as he kicked the Anbu and allowed him to flee the tent, letting him know that even though he dealt me the death blow, he probably already knows who I am and that I will still live to conquer his country. The dead last had finally fulfilled his dream. When Naruto heard the news that his Anbu messenger had brought him, he made sure that his best doctor, Tsunade, had his leg fixed and that he was receiving the best care. So, Sasuke and Shares had fused and were coming after Naruto, but why? He knew that Sasuke was power-hungry, and that Shares was also a demon, but it still didn't make sense for them to gather an army of demon shadows to attack rather than simply training until they were strong enough to destroy the village on their own. Now that Sasuke was an undead half-demon, he was no longer the man he treated as a brother, the boy he had trained with as a student, or his rival. He was threatening his way of life, and he would have to face it head-on. He told the man to let his friend in, saying, "Sir, the cage is here." He was referring to Gaara. "Good of you to come. Gaara, I take it that your army is in the ally bunkers I constructed last year?" Gaara was still the same man he had been friends with for a long time, but he was taller, had no dark lines, and was older. "Yes, I did see that you had made the bunkers comfortable. I've given it my all, and were prepared to defend you if necessary, but could you tell me why you called?" Naruto explained the situation to his friend, and Gaara, who was seated in the chair across the desk from him, asked, "He is responsible for this. When do you think he will launch an attack?" "He was roughly 2 days away. According to my scout, we'll find out when I send another out tomorrow morning. I understand that you changed the curriculum for your academy, and I'll mix my men with yours to ensure that we don't have any weak points." "Yes, he's coming from that direction, so I'll have some of my Anbu and whoever you designate wait on the sides of the village's north gate. Can you get 1,000 men? We need about 2,000 for that." Gaara stood, bowed, and turned to his men, saying, "I will find the perfect men for that job." The following morning, mid-morning after sending out his scout, Naruto met with Gaara, Kakashi, the ANBU's captain, and Stelios, the leader of the Cryptea, a group of the most elite Spartans. They talked about the battle plans, the various ways that Sasuke Shares could attack, and, finally, the deployment of soldiers. Since the north is our defense's weakest point, the first scout predicted that they would attack from there. He will therefore expect us to fortify it with our men and send people to the sides and back. What I want to do is place men on the rooftops while keeping the majority on the wall. Additionally, if we are flanked, we will have the men on the walls flag the men on the rooftops toward them. Since Konoha has thousands of buildings, we could likely maintain a platoon of 30 men on each one, combining our hoplite shinobi, Anbu, Cryptea, and Suna men. This will enable our roughly 55,000 soldiers to move swiftly and avoid concentrating in one area. They had spent the majority of the morning planning, and since it was now well into the afternoon, they divided into the camps to disseminate the plan among the soldiers. "I also want men outside the gates to wait to flank the enemy when we need it," Naruto finally concluded, and nobody seemed to object. The scout returned, discovered the enemy army's plans, and managed to blend in with them. They will spread out and burn the entire wall, slowly baking the village and suffocating everyone. The demon shadows will massacre anyone who does not perish from asphyxiation. The Anbu had excellent intelligence. "Thank you. We're going to have to do something I never imagined we'd have to do. We'll have to cut down every tree within a mile of our village," Naruto thought out loud. "That way we can see the army as it comes in." "Mister? How are we going to finish this in a day? 3 leagues away from here, they're camped? I'll take part in an activity I haven't done in years. You're fired, and you'll be named the recon team's captain following this battle." "Thank you, sir." After bowing low, the Anbu disappeared from view. "Kyuubi, I'll need your help. I'm going to need to make easily 20,000 clones. I can make 10,000 on my own, If I can get your chakra and sustain them long enough to clear every tree within the mile, then I may be able to stay alive and conscious long enough. You have all you need, thanks, let's get it done. Legions of clones stood poised to tear the trees to pieces as Naruto's chakra glowed a violent red, and they all focused their chakras simultaneously before uttering the same words in a single, loud shout. Udama Rasengan. One Naruto said, I'm sorry I did this trees, but it is necessary. They struck the trees with the giant balls of chakra, and they exploded in a shower of wood chips and leaves. The large trees that stretched for a mile in all directions from the village were destroyed by 50,000 shadow clones, and since the chips were too small and numerous to start a significant fire, they could be left alone. Naruto nodded his head in approval and returned to his village, knowing that he had done something that would benefit them. Rock Lee, Naruto's longtime sparring partner, was standing inside the village. My lord, I'm here to ask that I be able to command a unit before the others so that we can engage these monsters in valiant battle. Lee bowed. Even though it will be magnificent, I want you to remain in the ranks because Stelios and his Cryptea will be the ones leading a unit in the future. Naruto touched his friend's shoulder and asked, have you gotten the weapons I advised you to get? Yes, sir. I have acquired the unique gauntlets that will enable me to annihilate the adversary in a more elegant and youthful manner. Lee produced the gauntlets he was referring to, which were leather on the inside but featured metal plates that overlapped and studs over the plates on the knuckles. The back of the gauntlets bore the kanji for power. Guy had died fighting the Akatsuki like Asuma, so Naruto grinned and said, good Lee, remember to wear those. Guy-sensei would appreciate you doing so, and they will also help you block the swords of the enemies. Now I must go find Kakashi, so please prepare for battle. Yes, sir, Lee shouted, gave a salute, and then sprinted home. Naruto headed for the memorial for Kia Shinobi, where he knew Kakashi would be at the stone. He saw his old teacher in his Anbu gear, and he rejoined the unit when Naruto asked him to take on the role of captain because he no longer wanted to teach. Naruto addressed his teacher and friend, saying, Sensei, if you wish to speak to father, sit on the mountain. No, I'm thinking that as a teacher, I failed Sakura and you. Naruto, I never taught you too because I was always thinking about Sasuke after leaving. He has returned to demolish our village. Kakashi sat next to the 3 stumps where he had first taught them, and Minato would be very disappointed in me. No, you taught me more than you realize, and he would be proud. Not jutsu, but ninja-style thought processes. It's true that you helped Sasuke a lot with his Sharingan and taught him the Chidori, but things happen. We've achieved our goals, and you were there to support us. Sakura is now the assistant head doctor, and I'm the Hokage. I'd say you helped me more than you think, especially since you helped me refine the Rasengan. Naruto sat beside him and said, don't worry about that, let's go get a drink, and enjoy this night. I want to remember it if I fall in battle. Naruto wasn't quite ready to die. He wanted to have a child and raise Sasuke's daughter Konoha if he died in battle. That would just be the way things were, but he wouldn't allow it to happen as such. After they went for a drink, they continued to talk about Kakashi and how, if he had died in battle, he wanted Kakashi to take care of Konoha and help her with the Sharingan if she needed it. They also discussed other random topics, and when Kakashi was ranting about Jiraiya's excellent work in his notorious writing, Naruto just laughed because he never imagined someone could talk so much about a single subject. Eventually, they parted ways, and when Naruto got home, Sakura was waiting for him outside. Sakura stood and kissed her soon-to-be husband, saying, Naruto, I'm pregnant. That's fantastic. Have you heard from Tsunade? After putting his arm around her shoulders, Naruto led her inside. Yes, according to her, she felt a second chakra in me. However, I can't go to battle now that I have this child with me. This news is not good. One of our finest soldiers is you. However, the fact that you are pregnant is better news. They went to their room and said, Sakura, I love you. Naruto was particularly thrilled about this because it meant that he would have his own child, one that he would ensure grew up well. Let's get to bed. I need to be up early. The soldiers are going to need to be assembled. Before dressing and putting on his armor, Naruto woke up before dawn, kissed his fiancée, grabbed his sword and helmet, and went to the door, where he saw his brother Ichigo waiting. Ichigo, wearing his armor, said, Brother, I want to come fight with you. I'm old enough. I even went through the growth. Now I'm ready to fight. Naruto approached his brother. My little brother Ichigo, I can't have you fight. I'll need you to stay behind. If I fall in battle, I want you to be my successor. No, I'd like to fight. I'm not a good leader, Ichigo shouted. Naruto finally gave in and let the boy enter. They proceeded to the gates, where most of the soldiers were, and saw Gaara, Kakashi, and Stelios all in their armor, prepared to fight. Fine, but it's the same, stay in the ranks, you must survive, even if I don't. Ichigo. You seem like a real man now that you've gone through the growth. Are you prepared for battle? Stelios inquired. Yes, sir. Along with the other soldiers, I'll kill a lot. Ichigo made a loud announcement, and Stelios chuckled at the young man's determination. Kakashi was wearing his wolf mask and his sword was on his back. All right. Since there is no longer a forest to burn, men, we will probably be the primary battleground. Be ready for glory and get ready for battle. To the soldiers surrounding him, Naruto made a loud announcement. After hours of waiting, they finally saw a black skin, gleaming armor under Sasuke Shiro's leadership. The entire army marched until they were about 100 meters away, at which point they halted, while the Uchiha demon kept moving. You have altered the landscape, haven't you? The half-demon grinned and said, I'll wait, no matter what. We'll still destroy you. This is where the battle will take place. You can bring out all your soldiers. They'll need to be here if you wish to survive. You'll stab me in the back as I retreat. I'll fight you as I am. All right guys. Take off. Archers on the wall released arrows with explosive tags into the ranks of the demon shadows as they charged, destroying them 3 at a time. As they detonated, Naruto pulled out his shield in time to block the blade as Sasuke drew his sword and lunged at the Hokage. As the main army charged to meet the ranks of enemies, the flagger on the wall alerted men in the village. Naruto and Sasuke fought until Sasuke stepped back, creating seals for what appeared to be a summoning. Kyuubi. Right now, Naruto yelled. His stomach grew hot as the demon fox was released. He was about the size of an elephant, but wiry and lithe as a fox is. He charged at the half-demon general, who danced away into the ranks of men. Kyuubi attacked men with claws and fangs, ripping flesh like paper as well as armor and shields. Men died from both sides, but it was more demon shadows than Konoha and Suna men. Eventually the men on the wall flagged for the Anbu hiding to come and flank the enemy. They appeared seemingly from nowhere, but they actually came from under the chips of trees that lay all around the walls of the village. They drew swords and attacked from the sides. The enemy was pushed back. Naruto went through the enemy's ranks, killing as his front lines formed a phalanx to guard the men. He was riding Kyuubi like a warhorse, killing indiscriminately. He finally saw why Sasuke had retreated into his lines. He rode a large black fox, smaller than Kyuubi, but still bearing multiple tails. He charged through his soldiers and attacked the Konoha general. Their mounts attacked each other with fang and claw. Both jumped from them as they wrestled like wild animals. They drew swords and charged, parrying and countering blow after blow. Naruto and Suna had won in the first round, and he climbed on Kyuubi and rode back to his home, killing retreating enemies with spear thrusts from Fox back. The battle continued in this manner for hours until the sun went down. Shiraze was severely injured by Kyuubi, who also did not emerge from the battle unscathed, but was far better off than his brother. That was the end of the first battle fought for Konoha, and they suffered far fewer casualties than their enemy. Of the 50,000 men, only 100 were killed, and only 200 were wounded. Naruto was relieved that the enemy numbers were estimated to be 1,000 lower. They were told by Naruto that they could remove their men from the battlefield, and as they cleared away the corpses, they could smell the stench of burning flesh for miles around. As he stood outside with his army, Naruto saw Sasuke Shiro's men approach once more. This time, however, they charged full force, with the Cryptea leading the lines and remaining steady. Naruto was sitting atop his tenant, spear ready, and he charged with ferocity, causing Kyuubi to jump into the lines and tear flesh with his claws and fangs. Naruto struck men with his blade, and while the phalanx attacked the front, he struck the lines with his sword. The fight then took a surprising turn when the phalanx broke and the Spartan men charged fearlessly into the lines. With Naruto leading like a charioteer, he encountered Sasuke and Shiraze in the middle of the battle, and they attacked the fox again. With Sasuke constantly trying to kill Naruto with jutsu, Naruto launched himself from Kyuubi's back, and he thrust it through Sasuke's shield, causing the metal and wood to splinter and send shrapnel flying. Sasuke caught the arm and grinned. Naruto's body went numb with electric flow as he said, "You chose offense." Wrong choice. Naruto fell to the ground, his men falling behind him, but they fought back, killing many of the enemy as well. Naruto staggered to his feet, feeling a kick slam the wind from him. "Did you think you could win?" Sasuke kicked him once more, saying, "I've got a demon now too." Shiraze was obviously losing the battle with Kyuubi, but he said, "If I killed you and that monster, I'd win this battle." He then charged a Chidori, removing Naruto's helmet, grabbing his long hair, and pulling him up. He said, "I will have this battle. Take Konoha and then Suna, and then the world." He thrust his hand forward, but felt it stop, and Naruto gave him a defiant look. "Not a chance. I've killed you once, now I'll do it again." The red chakra started to flow from him, forming 5 tails. "You are a demon. I have control of one, the stronger brother, and the one who killed the younger. Sasuke felt the chakra drain from his body, and then he felt a strong fist crack his armor. Naruto then punched him again, this time in the face, and again in the face, knocking off his helmet. You thought you could have all that power the easy way, but no, power is something you work for, that's why you always failed. Naruto picked up his sword, and when he saw Sasuke draw his, he grinned. You wish to challenge me in a contest of the sword? You know the answer. Sasuke lunged, intending to thrust into his chest, but felt his sword batted aside by a powerful swing. The same swing came down, but Sasuke blocked it. Naruto kicked him in the leg, causing him to stagger a little, and then stepped forward, thrusting. When Sasuke stepped back, he rolled to his right side, under his blade, and as he came up, he used his left hand to draw his knife and plant it in Sasuke's right shoulder, effectively disabling the arm. Naruto was knocked back with a powerful kick, and as he stood, he watched Sasuke remove the knife from his shoulder, stop the bleeding, and then switch his sword hand. That knife is a great annoy. However, you have never engaged in combat with someone who is proficient with their left hand, have you? You see, I met this wonderful man while I was in the underworld, and he taught me how to use a blade with my left hand, Naruto said as he stood up and watched Sasuke raise his blade with his left hand. Why, you ask? Because you should use your left arm to fight if you are unable to use your right. What you don't realize is that whenever someone parries with their left hand, their opponent's back is exposed, which makes it easier to kill them. Sasuke advanced. The Kusanagi he had reclaimed prior to his death swiftly approaching Naruto pushed the blade aside and blocked it, punching the dead Uchiha's exposed ribs before kicking him back and picking up his knife in his left hand. Sasuke easily deflected each blow during their lengthy duel, while Naruto fared equally. Over the years, Gaara had developed a close-quarters fighting style, including the use of a katana, and he had ensured that all men were proficient in this technique to avoid giving them any weaknesses at the moment. He defeated his adversaries with a level of grace that was uncommon for the Kazekage. Even though he had stopped the bleeding, Kakashi was still having trouble moving due to a cut on his leg, but he was firmly established in his position, using his sword to slay enemies. Camp was where a Spartan belonged, and Ichigo fought alongside Stelios and his men, who fought like animals in single combat and even more like the titans of old in large-scale combat, killing multiple men in heartbeats at the moment. Ichigo was wielding his sword, cleaving bone and armor as if nothing had stood in his way. Stelios was grinning broadly. From the archer's perches on the wall, Sakura observed the hell that was combat at one point. She even claimed to have heard Rock Lee yelling about the flames of youth, as he kicked, punched, and otherwise battered his opponents into oblivion. Sasuke retreated into the field of men, while Kyuubi knelt on his front paws, indicating that Naruto was supposed to mount him. Sharaze sustained numerous injuries from claws and fangs, which did, however, heal visibly as the battle continued. Naruto was not having an easy time fighting Sasuke, while Kyuubi was faring much better. Use fire jutsu, boy, burn to ashes these abominations. Kyuubi let out a growl, and Naruto finally ended with a shout after flashing through hand seals. Grand Fireball Jutsu in fire style. Due to the demonic chakra that flowed through him, Naruto then ejected a massive ball of flame that was several times larger than this jutsu typically did. The enemies screamed in pain as their flesh melted, and he created clones of himself and his mount, which continued to slaughter the demon shadows as he pursued their general through the throng of soldiers. They fled west. Leagues of forest passed as they ran far from Konoha and the soldiers, eventually coming to a stop in a familiar location. The End Valley. So you want to stop it right where it started? Sasuke dismounted from Sharaze and said, I'm going to end it where I fought and won my freedom. Naruto brought his sword and spear down, and this time he brought a shield that was black like obsidian with a bright red eye in the center. I'm going to end it here, you're going to die and stay dead this time. Sasuke rushed forward, thrusting his spear to be deflected by the Hokage's shield, and said, No, you're going to die, and I'm going to remain the immortal ruler of the world. Naruto tried to attack Sasuke's exposed sides, but was unsuccessful when the Uchiha batted his spear aside with his shield. He had hung the shield from his shoulder, which limited his movement but allowed him to use his right arm for his shield. Holding his spear above his shield, Naruto stepped back and repeatedly thrust at Sasuke, weakening his defense each time. After dropping his spear and drawing his sword, he swung once, striking the shield, then again, swinging low, this time attempting to strike the exposed knee. Sasuke turned on his back foot and swung his blade. Carrying the momentum from the pivot, Naruto kicked low into Sasuke's leg, causing him to stagger. As the Spartan moved to strike, he rolled back, coming up onto his knee, sheathing his sword and picking up his spear. You believe you can defeat me using just your left hand? Oh, Naruto took off his helmet and dropped his shield. Naruto, your arrogant Sasuke stood and struck with his spear, but Naruto ducked and used his arm to catch it against his armored chest. Never get cocky. The Hokage intervened and cut the shield strap, making the shield a weight on his dead arm, then brought the spear through his other arm. No, I'm not cocky, I just know it's undeniably my fight to win. Naruto snapped the spear with his arm, catching the broken shaft with the point and holding it like a sword. Now you'll die. When he saw that Kyuubi had delivered the final blow to his younger brother, Naruto pulled a coin from his pocket and placed it under his tongue. 1. He then set fire to his body, cremating him in the manner of his Greek ancestors. Goodbye again, my once brother. Naruto raised his sword. Unless your sins prevent you from crossing the river Styx. What's bothering you, boy? The beast with 9 tails inquired. What gave Sasuke his wickedness? Naruto thought about it. Kyuubi answered, it is just the way some people are. Recalling his former brother, Naruto said, no, not him. He was righteous once, but then he changed. Naruto then said to his tenant, who permitted him to mount him, come, we need to return to the village, the army may need us. Back in Konoha when the battle went well, the demon shadows suddenly became weaker and appeared to be less organized. Their forces were pushed back, and eventually the remaining 1,000 or so retreated after all the allied dead were cleared from the field. Every soldier with the ability to use a fire jutsu burned the corpses of their enemies as sunset drew near. Kakashi continued to watch the west gate from above, looking for any sign of Naruto. Kakashi was about to turn around and head out when he noticed the 9-tailed fox's gleaming red fur and then the dark, gleaming silver of his armor. Naruto had returned with his opponent's sword, and Kakashi went to meet him. We prevailed, Naruto. The rest of the army that we did not destroy was driven back. He had never heard Kakashi so excited before. I brought Sasuke's sword, which I want to keep in my mansion after I killed him. I want to remember him as my brother, and I want Konoha to use her father's sword when she grows up regardless of the evil history it has. Naruto appeared a little down. Well then, I believe Gaara and your fiancé want to see you. Okay, Kakashi, I want you to be my best man, if that wouldn't be too much to ask. Kakashi would have grinned, but his mask kept it hidden. I'd be honored to Naruto. As the soldiers in the streets cheered his name, Naruto rode through the gates on the back of Kyuubi and said, I'll tell Sakura, she's been wondering who I'd choose. I've got to go though. Naruto had always wondered what it was like to be treated like a king returning from war, and now he knew. Naruto discovered Gaara sitting in his tent with his men, his arm bandaged. You seem to have a scratch there. Naruto made a joke. Nothing that's worth mentioning, just a sword across the arm. Gaara cracked a grin. I wanted to see how you were doing. Everyone saw you chase the Uchiha off the battlefield. I'm happy that we won, even though I'm not feeling well. In addition, I will soon become a husband and father. Konoha is already like a child to me, and Kakashi is my best man. It seems that you have a good life ahead of you. Yes, say Gaara, when do you intend to tie the knot? I already am. What? Naruto was shocked beyond belief. Gaara grinned and said, I'm married to a woman named Matsumoto Rangaku. He hadn't really considered bringing it up. You could have informed me. Naruto turned and said, Sakura wants to see me, so I've got to go. I'll see you, friend. He then bowed to Gaara and walked away. Naruto smiled and said, well, I guess that since we're so far away from each other it's hard. Sakura rushed to meet Naruto as soon as she saw him coming, giving him a passionate kiss to express how much she missed and cared for him. This time, Sasuke is permanently dead because I brought his sword. If Konoha decides to become a ninja when she gets older, she will use it. Is it accurate to say that you two traveled to the Valley of the End after pursuing him west? Yes, we fought and I killed him there. Then, we have cause to rejoice. Have you selected your ideal partner? Kakashi is my best man. I was aware that you would pick him with the possible exception of Ichigo. He and Gaara are the only people you would truly pick. Remember Jiraiya, however. Placing him in a room with that many women would be risky. You've got lots of pals. Yes, that lustful man would give it a shot. I can tell you're exhausted, so let's go to bed. I am indeed, though I need a shower first. Okay, but then please come to bed. I will.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.